council, please complete a comment card. Comment cards are located by the clerk, seated to the right of the dais. When called to speak, you're going to hand your card to the clerk. I ask you to please stand for the invocation to be given by Pastor Bob Brubaker from Christ Community Presbyterian Church, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Oh God, our Father in heaven, we thank you for the blessings upon our fair city. It is a beautiful place to live, and you have blessed us richly over the years. As our council meets tonight, they need your grace and your wisdom, and pray that the spirit of unity would prevail in this meeting. In all things, Lord, we call upon you because we need your help, and so we call upon you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Brubaker. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to start with some introductions from the dais. I'll start from my right. We have Assistant City Manager Michael Delk, City Manager Jennifer Poirrier.
Good evening.
Councilmember Mark Bunker.
Good evening.
Councilmember Lena Teixeira.
Good evening.
Councilmember David Albritton.
Good evening.
And our City Attorney David Margolis.
Good evening.
Good evening. All right, we're going to start with Agenda Item 4 and the Mayor's Challenge presentation. Can I please have Dunedin Mayor Julie Ward Bujalski and Dunedin Parks and Recreation Director Vince Gizzi come forward? This is all in good fun, good spirit. So why are you here this evening?
Yeah, well. Okay, so for those watching that don't know, annually, as you know, we have spring training in Dunedin as well as in Clearwater. And every year, just for fun, we have our Mayor's Challenge. And every year we just rotate. This year it was at the Phillies Stadium. And our challenge is when the Jays and the Phillies play. Now, I really wish it would have been at the end of the month, when we really, kicked the snot out of the Phillies. But it wasn't. We got creamed pretty good
7-2
this year by the Phillies. Yeah. So part of that challenge is we have a rotating cup that the winning city gets to hold on to and have their name on it, and then the losing city gets to wear the winning city's jersey.
Beautiful red. Woo! Looking good.
And I had to wear this here last year, so this isn't the first time I've worn this jersey, but I don't let red in.
All right. Cover it up.
I do want to just introduce my colleagues. I have Commissioner Rob Walker, Commissioner Mo Franey, our City Manager Jennifer Bramley, and our Parks and Rec Director Vince Gizzi, and they were all there to witness. But more importantly, the reason we do this is because of how important spring training is to the economy of Clearwater, Dunedin, and Pinellas County. Most people don't understand, but if you don't have a certain number of teams in your region to play, spring training is not worthwhile for the actual baseball team. And so we're as supportive as you all have been with the Jays, and when we went through our negotiations and keeping them here for another 25 years, we are equally as supportive of keeping the Phillies here. It only makes our spring training visitors more things to do, stronger economy, and keeps the system working well. So we support the Phillies greatly, and wish you the best of luck as you enter into all your stuff this year. I know you guys have been through a lot, and I'd love to come and present you. May I approach the bench, Your Honor?
Yes, you may. Thank you. Well, thank you. We wish both teams good luck. They're off to kind of a rocky start.
Yes.
But they're going to do great.
Yeah. Oh, and 3, 4.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
We're at 1 and 3. 1 and 3.
Yeah.
One more
Early.
than 3.
Well, here's to many more Mayor's Challenge Cup games. It was a lot of fun.
And next year it'll be at our stadium.
Next year it'll be in yours.
So thank you all for being there and showing up, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Fantastic. Agenda item 4.2 is our Fair Housing Proclamation. Can I call forward Joe Farrell, Pinellas Realtor Organization, and Denise Sanderson, our Economic Development and Housing Director.
Good evening, Council. Yes, my name is Joe Farrell with the Pinellas Realtor Organization. First off, I'm joined here by Jeffrey Laura with the Pinellas County Office on Human Rights. Angela Emerson is also the president of the Tampa Bay Fair Housing Consortium. And I just want to say thank you for recognizing Fair Housing Month. You know, these good folks in the Tampa Bay Housing Consortium, or Fair Housing Consortium, stand on the shoulders of so many people in the decades prior that have worked across our country, worked so hard to make sure that everyone has the access to housing that they should have access to housing. And, you know, we live in a veritable utopia compared to what people have gone in the past, but there's still work to be done. And I'm glad that we could do this, and also I know that your department here at the city, I'm glad to work with the city of Clearwater. We work with Pinellas County, Hillsborough County, the city of St. Pete, city of Tampa as well. And just want to say thank you for this proclamation and hope that everyone continues to keep in mind that everyone deserves access to housing.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate the work you do. Denise, anything to say?
I just wanted to add that I think it's the 19th annual Fair Housing Symposium is scheduled for April 27th from 8 to 5 p.m. and it's going to be located at the Pinellas Realtor Organization's offices at 4590 Elmerton Road.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right, so I'll read the proclamation. Whereas, in honor of the 55th anniversary of the signing of the Title VIII of the 1968 Civil Rights Act, also known as the Fair Housing Act, April is designated as Fair Housing Month to bring attention to the landmark legislation that guarantees fair housing and equal opportunity for our nation's citizens concerning the sale, rental, and financing of housing based on race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, and national origin, enabling individuals to live free and in communities open and welcoming. And whereas providing fair housing opportunities for all citizens is an essential goal of the City of Clearwater, and it joins with the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, concerned citizens, and the housing industry in working to realize the dream of fair and affordable housing for all city residents. And we celebrate the passage of the Fair Housing Act because diverse communities make all Americans stronger, living in healthy, robust neighborhoods. And whereas the City of Clearwater is proud of its more than 5 decades of cooperation and work to advance the enjoyment of housing opportunities by enforcing local, state, and federal anti-discrimination laws, and constantly improving and refining its commitment to fair and affordable housing. Now, therefore, I, Kathleen Beckman, Vice Mayor of the City of Clearwater, Florida, on behalf of the Clearwater City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2023 to be Fair Housing Month in the City of Clearwater, Florida. Thank you.
Do you want to come up for your proclamation?
Would you like, yeah. We usually come on up front.
Come on
Up
over
front.
here.
There's a little help right here. Yeah, that's okay. And you can stand here if you need a photo or anything, sure. Yeah, that'd be great. Well, thank you. Congratulations, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Richard.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your important work.
Oops. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did you want to stand for a photo?
Absolutely.
Okay. All good? Okay.
Come get it.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so there's been a request to move agenda item 10.2. Do I have a motion to take agenda item 10.2 to approve a non-binding definition of antisemitism out of order to be heard before the next presentation?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. So,
Item 10.2, approve a non-binding definition of anti-Semitism, directing city staff to familiarize themselves with this definition and corresponding and incorporate their usage with appropriate and adopt Resolution 23-05.
Council, this is my item. You've asked me unanimously to prepare a resolution. I have looked at some sample resolutions that were used by other municipalities across the country. Some of the language is a little bit more appropriate for our local environment, but I have created what I think is an appropriate adaptation of that language. If this resolution is passed by council, we can incorporate this definition into training materials and other internal uses as well. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Well, I think that, I think that all forms of hatred and bigotry are certainly intolerable. But with the increase in violence and hate directed at the Jewish community, this resolution is particularly apropos now. So I'm in favor of it.
You need a motion?
Ultimately, public will need to be heard on this,
Okay.
or have the opportunity to be heard.
Okay. Do I have any do you want to read it first, or
We can take
before
it.
public comment?
We can take it in either order. I can go ahead and read the title of it.
I think we should.
Absolutely. So it's a resolution of the City of Clearwater, Florida, approving a non-binding definition of anti-Semitism, directing city staff to familiarize themselves with this definition and corresponding reference materials, incorporating their usage where appropriate, and providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public like to speak on this resolution?
Council members, good to see you again, and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Stuart Berger. I have been a resident of beautiful Clearwater for 34 years, and my wife and I raised our children here. I speak tonight in my role as the director of the Jewish Community Relations Council of the Jewish Federation of Florida's Gulf Coast. I'm the director. It is very sad and troubling to me that in 2023, on the night before Passover begins, the Jewish holiday that celebrates our freedom from slavery, that we need to be gathered here today asking you to pass a resolution regarding anti-Semitism. In adopting the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism tonight, Clearwater has the opportunity to join 23 other Florida municipalities in adopting this important resolution, and will be the first in Tampa Bay to do so. Anti-Semitism has often been described as the most ancient and enduring of hatreds. And much like a virus, it adapts to the times it finds itself in. During ancient times, Jewish people faced persecution for believing in just one God and not assimilating into the pagan cultures surrounding them. In Europe during medieval times, Jewish people as a whole were blamed for any number of misfortunes and suffered from regular massacres, forced conversions, and expulsions from many countries. And of course, in the 20th century, last century, there was Adolf Hitler. He started with hateful words, and he ended with gas chambers. In our country, anti-Semitism went underground after the Second World War. Unfortunately, it never went away, and today it is no longer underground. Every morning I receive a text from the Secure Community Network. Every morning I see reports like these. Swastikas were discovered at Clarkstown South High School in New York. 3 teens vandalized town property with anti-Semitic graffiti. Rise in anti-Semitic hate crimes leads to more protection for Jewish communities ahead of Passover. And unfortunately, just this past weekend, anti-Semitic flyers were again found distributed in St. Petersburg. It should not be like this. We know that other municipalities have found that adopting this working definition helps city officials, including police officers and first responders, understand what is anti-Semitic and what is not. We also know that passing this resolution will not end anti-Semitism, but that it is an important step to combating it. I thank you today for the consideration that you've given this resolution. I urge you to pass it, and again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Berger.
City Council, City staff, my name is Samuel Hutkin. I reside at 755 El Dorado. I've lived here for almost 15 years now. I'm the president of the Clearwater Beach Association and also on the board of directors for the Jewish Federation of Florida's Gulf Coast. I'm here to say, first off, thank you for putting this resolution on the agenda for discussion. Anti-Semitism, sadly, as we have noticed, has become in fashion again. Unfortunately, stating the obvious seems to be something we have to do lately in today's society. As representatives of our community, it helps to serve as a good example to remind our citizens that violence, hatred, bigotry will not be tolerated. For those that may need an actual definition, that's what this resolution provides. It is our job, not just as Jews, but as citizens, to stand together in solidarity. The Jewish people are a small fraction of the world's population, just over 2%. Yet the Jewish people are on the receiving end of over 55% of religious hate crimes. Like many generations before me, we don't ask for much. All we ask for is peace, acceptance, and for the ignorance of hate to stop. Wishful thinking, but it starts with education. You may think we wouldn't have to define it or clarify it for people to understand what it means, but today, many others and myself are asking this council to help in just doing that. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson.
Good evening to the council and to those of you who are with us this evening. And many thanks for considering the IRA definition. My name is Bruce Holberg. I have been a Clearwater resident for a little less than a year, and we love it here and intend to stay. So the IRA definition is not a new definition. It's in fact 7 years old. It's not a radical definition. It's been adopted by 39 countries around the world, including the United States. And in Florida, as you heard, there are 23 other municipalities who have adopted it, and we hope that you'll be 24th. The problem has grown enormously. A decade ago, there were 751 incidents of anti-Semitism in the United States, according to the Anti-Defamation League. Now, in 2022, that number has climbed to 3,697, the highest on record, and higher than the previous year, which was also a record setter. Unfortunately, I have to say that Florida is the number 4 state in incidents of anti-Semitism. There were 269 instances last year. And we made mention of the fact that we had the flyers being handed out. The organization that does the flyers has relocated their headquarters down here. We believe that if there's a common definition of anti-Semitism, it will increase reporting of anti-Semitism and the pursuit of instances of anti-Semitism. And we most strongly urge you to adopt this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is David Sadowski. For the past 34 years, I've been a resident of Clearwater, worked in downtown Clearwater, and I've been a member of Congregation Beth Shalom, located on Belcher Road in Clearwater. My wife and I have been privileged to raise our 2 sons in Clearwater. But I am here to address what the resolution before you to adopt the IRA definition of anti-Semitism does and does not do. The adoption of the IRA definition of anti-Semitism does not criminalize, prohibit, punish, or limit any speech, including protected First Amendment speech under the United States Constitution or the state of Florida Constitution. It does not in any manner chill or infringe upon such protected free speech, and it does not prohibit criticism of Jews or Israel. Then what will the adoption of the IRA definition do? So in order to address the problem of anti-Semitism, one must seek clarity about what is anti-Semitism. A recent study showed that half of adult Americans don't know what anti-Semitism is. The IHRA definition is the most universally accepted definition of anti-Semitism, having been adopted by 30 states and over 1,000 global entities as of January of 2023. Your adoption of the IHRA definition will act as a guide to label what speech is considered anti-Semitic speech. In other words, it will aid in the ability to see and understand what speech is anti-Semitic. Additionally, the courts have held that knowing what speech is considered anti-Semitic under an adopted definition is useful in analyzing the motive and intent behind illegal discriminatory conduct and addresses whether the target of such illegal conduct was chosen because they were Jewish. Okay. In sum, the adoption of the IHRA definition will not infringe upon one's right of protected speech, but will assist in labeling what speech is anti-Semitic. So in closing, in this unique year with the convergence of the holidays of Passover, Easter, and Ramadan, in the first part of April, let us dedicate ourselves to combat the forces of hatred, bigotry, and discrimination that attempt to divide us. Thank you for your time and your consideration of our request to adopt this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Sadowski. Anyone else to be heard for agenda item 10.2?
Good evening, council members. My name, and Ms. Poirrier. My name is Rudy Michaelek. I live at 855 Bayway Boulevard on Clearwater Beach. While I am not Jewish, I stand with my brethren, Samuel, and his other friends who are here this evening in understanding that you will support this initiative, which I think is very appropriate for the city of Clearwater. I would also add, in addition, that we have seen throughout the nation mass spectrums of hatred and ignorance and lies being purported that offend and attack these various groups that we have within us. And so the Jewish group is not the only one that has been at the attack point of these issues. But I just wanted to say, as a Catholic, that I support very much this initiative, and I'm very pleased and proud that you will all take this and handle it. Thank you.
Any questions or comments or statements about agenda item 10.2? Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
Move to approve item 10.2.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that forward. We're proud to sign on to that. So we'll move back to agenda item 4.2, which is our Drew Street update and requested letter of support. Ms. Kivett.
Good evening, Council. Tara Kivett, City Engineer. Florida Department of Transportation, District 7, recently completed the Drew Street Corridor Study to review the technical feasibility of providing the preferred concepts from the 2018 complete Drew Street Study to implement some of those concepts on Drew from North Osceola to North Keene that will repurpose 2 of the 4 existing travel lanes, improve safety for all users, and provide multimodal options. FDOT recently completed their lane repurposing report and has requested letters of support from Ford Pinellas, the City of Clearwater, and Pinellas County. To date, Ford Pinellas has submitted that letter. This evening we do have FDOT representatives Brian Shoyer, Kevin Lee, and Jason Yam, as well as Whit Blanton from Ford Pinellas, who can respond to any questions. But first, Lauren Mansky will come up and give a quick overview of planning efforts related to Drew Street to date.
Thank you.
Good evening, Lauren Matzke, Planning and Development. So, as Tara said, I needed to be quick. So, briefly, the agenda item that you received included a summary sheet of the different planning-related work and other efforts. The planning-related work which spanned 2017 and 2018. Since that goes into all the details, it also covers some of the council actions, which included authorization to apply for the original Complete Streets grant from Forward Pinellas, providing direction regarding the makeup of the Complete Streets Advisory Committee. That committee provided feedback and input to staff for both the Complete Drew Street project as well as the citywide Complete Streets implementation plan, both of which were being done concurrently. Council also provided feedback and helped select or offered their selected preferred concepts for each of the three segments, as Tara mentioned, and ultimately approved the Complete Drew Street concept plan in September 2018. I think it's important to highlight that the plan started, as most plans do, with an evaluation of the existing conditions, including looking at the context of the property surrounding the corridor, limitations to the right-of-way, and of course traffic-related data such as volume, speed, and safety. This was a neighborhood-driven effort from the beginning, and the city and consultant team worked to engage and listen to people of various different perspectives. That included the neighborhoods and residents, Drew Street businesses, other economic development partners and realtors, people in the biking community, as well as public institutions, of which there are several located along the corridor, and then our various agency partners. The concepts that City Council approved were later advanced into the next phases of study of design, again, as Tara touched on. So with that, I'll hand it back to Tara to give any more additional information.
Thank you. Again, Tara Kivett, City Engineer. So following those planning efforts, just recall in February of 22, Council passed a resolution to request FDOT to improve safety in that corridor and ultimately to lower the speeds. We asked from Saturn to Myrtle. They did lower the speed from the corridor from Betty Lane to Myrtle. And then also in February of 22, FDOT completed the intersection control evaluation, or ICE study, which evaluated intersections and the need for signals. And the study does recommend new signals at Hillcrest and North Lake Drive. So those are actually in the 15% concept plans. Then in fall of 22, FDOT procured their design team, Cardno, now Stantec, to move forward with design plans. And then in late February, FDOT requested these letters of support. In late March, city staff did meet with FDOT to review these 15% concept plans. A separate meeting was held where the county also reviewed the plans. We just submitted our comments today. I have not seen the county comments. I don't think they've been submitted yet. Whit Blanton also participated in both of those meetings. And that brings us to today. Here we are. We have submitted a draft letter of support for your review. As I mentioned earlier, we have representatives here to answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for Tara or Lauren right now before we hear public comment?
I'd like to hear public comment first.
Okay. Do you have a question first, Mr. Albrecht? Councilmember Albrecht?
Yeah. Or for the, like I said, the representatives from FDOT.
I'll hear them first, and then I may have questions after that.
They don't have a presentation prepared. They're just really here to answer some questions.
Okay.
Do we want to hear public comment first, and then questions? You okay with that?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so people who would like to speak to this agenda item, come forward, state your name, and fill out a card, please.
Good evening, esteemed council members. Thank you for your service, first of all. I've been a Florida Clearwater resident for 46 years. I resided at 1221 Drew Street. Now I'll sign in after.
Your name, just
state your name.
My name is Philip Orth, O-R-T-H. That's like an Orthodox. Right. I'm not always Orthodox, but anyway, that's my name. So I know about Drew Street and the traffic problems there, and the speeding, and how it narrows. It's very unsafe. I would just like to urge the council to go ahead and vote to accept the plans for revamping our Drew Street corridor as soon as possible. All right?
Thank you.
So much. Good evening, Commissioners and Counselor. I've been in Clearwater probably
Just state your name.
47 years. I've lived on Orangewood Avenue for 47 of those years.
What's your name? What's your name?
Could you
Oh, I'm
state your
sorry.
name,
For the
please?
record.
Yeah.
Bob Van Bommel,
Okay.
408 Orangewood Avenue. And I've seen Drew Street transition from a very passable road back in the old days to basically a nightmare today. And it really kind of happened when they did the renovations on Cleveland Street, because so many people used to use Cleveland as a way to get downtown. And when they took that away by traffic calming, everybody went over to Drew. And so over the years, especially like the last 5 to 7 years, we've seen numerous accidents on Drew. We've seen fatalities. As everybody knows, it's the area from Saturn all the way down to Osceola. It's so narrow. About 3 years ago, my wife and I, we went to all of the meetings. We talked to the consultants that the city had hired. We thought we really were making progress because we had some plans that really looked good. To me, the best option was to single lane Drew in each direction with a center turn lane. And the reason I say that, living on Orangewood Avenue, if I go up to Drew to make a left-hand turn to go east, there's a distinct problem there. And at the last meetings we had years ago, I talked to the traffic controller directors about this. The lights are not timed correctly. So what happens, the people of Highland going east, they'll come, and about the time that they finish up, the people from Saturn going west are on top of you. And you can sit there for 4 or 5 of those cycles before you can find a gap to pull out. And I mean, that's something that could be remedied just by timing the lights a little bit differently. But anyway, I don't know where we are as far as the final draft that everybody's talking about, because I've been out of the loop for a while. But just as a note, about 2 weeks ago, I was coming back to the house, coming from 19, going down Drew, going west, and there was a City Clearwater truck in front of me towing a trailer with a Bobcat on it, which is no problem. We were both in the left lane, and we got to the narrows there at Saturn, and I noticed his trailer is extending about 12 inches into the right-hand lane. And he was doing the best that he could to keep the trailer on the left side. He was right on the line, but the trailer was wide enough that the lane could not accommodate it, nor could anybody go around him. So
it's, thank you. I appreciate those comments.
Thank you.
Beth Davis. I live at 1962 Harding Plaza, and it would be remiss if I weren't here to talk about Drew Street. So good evening to you all, and thank you for your work. I'm saluting you and your support for the safety of the neighborhoods and downtown. And if you've not changed your minds, we are here to remind you of the voices of 7 years of people standing here and asking for help on Drew Street. For almost 7 years, the citizens, your constituents on this road, have requested this. The safety alone is staggering. It is a high injury network, hotspot, risk on FDOT's chart. From 20 to 22 in 2 years, this section had over 500 crashes, averaging 170 a year, with more than 60 crashes involving injury, many severe, and 1 fatality. So how could we not pay attention to safety? We know rear-ending happens. We know there's a solid yellow line that goes forever when there are many streets and driveways that deserve the chance to pull in, and people are trapped in their neighborhoods by speeding cars. You represent 4 different councils over 8 years of listening. So your vote tonight represents all that listening, and I ask you to please hear our plea. Clearwater asked for this work, study, and design, and now in the 11th hour, with over $8 million ready to be invested on our town, we need to vote yes. There's no room for any more study. The COVID traffic history of 3 years and Cleveland being closed, there's no comparison that reflects the dangerous reality of traffic today on Drew Street. This is no time for you to doubt the experts and their great work. Please don't repeat the many councils who have kicked the dangers down the road. Often we do studies in Clearwater, we spend money and we can't decide. This one is an easy choice. Vote yes to FDOT for the repurposing of Drew Street to a safe street. People can enjoy a safe downtown economy with a safe, not dangerous Drew Street. We talk about controllables in business, and we control this one. So the state has invested years of work and money on this project at our request. Residents continue to ask for this correction to this horrible street. Former councils have voted yes, and we need to say yes now. We ask for this improvement, and if we back out now, we risk our negotiation with any future need for our city from the state or Forward Pinellas, and we need to keep our relationships open and fruitful. This is old, historic Clearwater, and downtown will not be wonderful without a safe Drew Street. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Dan Shovlin. Again, this is a tough decision for a lot of you to make today. There's certainly a lot of people from the neighborhoods here and there, and they actually believe that this will bring safer, way to get to the beach and through downtown. But I speak for quite a few merchants, and our issue is we have thousands of people work downtown and on the beaches. It's already difficult to get down there now. And if you given that, with the narrowing of the streets, I've read some cases will take an extra 15 to 20 minutes just to get down to the beach. Recently in Cleveland Street, they spent some time ago, they narrowed things down, they put roundabouts to slow people down. If I were here from Cleveland Street, I'd be worried with this narrowing that everybody go over to Cleveland now. So, what will happen is some people will just take another road to get to another place faster. We're having a tough enough time getting people to work, on the beach and everything else. More time, one of the biggest complaints we have from our staff is because it's not worth the money to spend all the time it takes to get, especially this time of year, it takes to get to our area. I'd like to, check these traffic patterns that this lady brought up. I'm sure they're, versus the other thing, I think you're going to have just as much trouble on Cleveland Street when all this is said and done. And again, thousands of people take that road from North County to get down to the beach. And you hear complaints all the time, just not for staff, you hear it from people all the time, we don't go to the beach anymore because it takes too long. I don't think this is going to help, but I'd like to have you long and hard thought about what you're trying to do here, because it's going to actually hurt the employment issues that we have currently on the beach. And over and above, which the people on Cleveland Street, I think they're going to go through their own form of hell, because I know that's what people do in order to bypass any kind of slower traffic on Drew. They're going to head to Cleveland. Thank you.
Good evening, all.
Good evening. Could you state your name, please?
My name is Joanne Portis. I live in Northeast Clearwater at the On Top of the World community. I'm a Clearwater native, born at Morton Plant Hospital, and I have a long history of crossing Drew and traveling Drew for all of my driving years, beginning with my teen years when I visited this library every single week. And I also drove to my job on Poinsettia on Clearwater Beach. I drove Drew recently, weekly, during Meals on Wheels deliveries. And it's worse and worse every single year. When you live in Northeast Clearwater, Drew Street is the most direct route to get to this section of town. I can drive Sunset Point as far as North Fort Harrison, and then south to downtown Clearwater. But still, I touch Drew at some point. My least favorite span of Drew stretches from Hercules to MLK. The scariest stretch for me is Highland to Missouri. Whenever I hear someone giving directions, oh, just take Drew Street, I think, no, it's too awful, it's not safe, it really needs to be improved. I really can't stand driving on Drew Street. I avoid it at all cost. And I'd like a yes, finally. The studies have been too long, and it's time for action. Thank you.
Good evening, council members, staff. My name is Chris Latvala. I've been a resident of Clearwater for 15 years, and I live in the Skycrest neighborhood, and I speak as a resident of Clearwater. And I wanted to speak about my concerns as a resident of Skycrest because I believe this will increase traffic along Cleveland Street and in the Skycrest neighborhood. Starting this summer, Imagine Clearwater will bring thousands of visitors to downtown Clearwater, which is a great thing. I think Imagine Clearwater will do great things for downtown, but it will bring new traffic and more traffic, whether it's Drew Street or Cleveland Street or Gulf to Bay. And we know how bad it is going down Gulf to Bay to the beach. And the Skycrest concerns is that people will be barreling down Cleveland Street, as was mentioned before, which is a residential neighborhood and a large portion along Cleveland Street. So I just wanted to be here and voice my opposition to this plan. And some residents of Skycrest have also reached out and expressed those concerns to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mike Reardon, and I'm a little confused. Skycrest Neighborhood Association got the grant from Fort Pinellas. Now we're hearing Skycrest is concerned. I hear business people from the beach, you want employees to come work? Pay them more, give them some parking. None of them were up here crybaby William when they shut down 2 lanes and then shut down 2 blocks on Cleveland Street, which was the State Road 60. Nobody was complaining. I'm hearing they're worried about Skycrest getting more cars than their neighborhood, than residential. The section we're doing the streetscape is residential, 90%. This hasn't been going on for 7 years. It's been going on 7 years since the grant. I complained about it in 2004 when my wife was rear-ended with my kid. I was told by city staff and some politicians that used to sit up here, there's nothing we can do about it. It's a state road, and the state won't fix it. Well, we know that's BS. This is going to happen. We got the votes. Thank you.
Good evening. Madam Vice Mayor, Madam City Manager, City Council members, I'm Bud Elias. Live in 2760 Sea Pine Circle in Countryside. I drove from Countryside this evening down Drew Street, packed with cars. And I think about what is the purpose in moving it from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, one way each way. I think we all agree, like all of Pinellas County, Clearwater is experiencing a growing traffic congestion problem. So is the basic idea to accommodate the occasional backrider at the expense of significant daily vehicle traffic? Drew is a narrow street to begin with, and to narrow it down to 1 lane each way with bike lanes on both sides defies common practical sense. Can you imagine the line of traffic in the morning when the City of Clearwater garbage truck is on Drew Street picking up garbage, the line of traffic would be miles if we only had one-way, two-lane lines. I travel Drew probably 3 to 4 times a week, and I'm always impressed with the volume of traffic, both ways. I can't remember the last time when I had a chance to look at Drew Street where there was virtually no traffic. So if this proposal goes through, where will all of the displaced vehicle traffic go? Will it go to Gulf to Bay, which is already a congested thoroughfare? Will it go to Cleveland? Where will it go? I would respectfully request that this idea be relegated to the trash bin of bad ideas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tara Hurley. I live on Cleveland Street. I am part of the Skycrest community, and I am sorry what happened to your wife. Unfortunately, I moved in 2013. I was not part of the vote for the Skycrest community. I was unaware of this project actually recently until I attended one of our neighborhood meetings where I learned about it, and that caused me to do research. In that, I decided to go ahead and poll my neighbors and poll the business representatives on Drew Street, none of which seemed to have any idea of what was going on, all which expressed concern about it being dropped down to 2 lanes. So I'm here tonight for you to reconsider and to say that we do understand that something needs to be done on Drew Street. It is unsafe. We have a launch date for Imagine Clearwater, and we're urging everybody to take Drew Street. How are we going to accommodate that many people on the lane if there's only 1 lane to that? We believe it's reasonable that we do look at different changes and options instead of just bringing it down to 2 streets or 2 lanes. We are worried that it will go into Cleveland Street. As we did the traffic calming, we have the same worry that Drew Street has. Are we going to now be getting cars in our homes with our children on our street? It's already a busy enough road. Now we're going to push it onto our street, which is Cleveland, and then Gulf to Bay, and possibly Druid. Our concern is, we need more information. We need more studies done. We need to take into consideration that there is 2 main arteries that go down to downtown. And if you limit one of them, what is that going to do? If we have a hurricane that comes and it is a one-way, how are we expecting everybody to evacuate? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Amy Lewis, and I'm a resident of Skycrest, and I'm against it. I've lived there my entire life. I've lived off Cleveland. I've had to take Drew. I've had to deal with the insanity that is Drew. Something does need to be done about Drew. The problem is, say you have an accident on 1 lane of Drew, and they divert onto Cleveland. What happens is these people who are used to being able to go faster lose their minds. They go 20 miles over an hour, an hour over the speed limit down their road because they're inconvenienced. And then they hit a traffic calming and they have to slow down. And then they speed back up, sometimes 50 miles an hour where it's 30. It's terrifying because they don't care. I live on Skycrest, which used to be, first it was not through to Gulf to Bay. Then it was, and then they took it away. And so when people try to go through, they'll get really mad when they have to turn around and come back. And again, they're speeding, and they don't care. Also, with the bike lanes, it's the same thing. If they think there's no bicyclist in a lane, and they feel that it's going too slow, they're going to use those bike lanes as passing lanes anyways. And if a bicyclist pulls into that lane, knowing it's a bike lane, it's going to become a safety hazard for the bicyclist. Speaking as somebody who's been hit twice on a bike when obeying all of the traffic laws. So cars, when they don't care, they don't care. And it doesn't matter what you do about it. But this is very unsafe. It's just, it needs to have something done. It needs to be better. But people who are used to the way traffic is now are not going to respond. and they're just gonna do what they're gonna do, and people are gonna get more hurt, so.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Barb Fisher, and I live on Hillcrest, on the corner of Drew and Hillcrest. I've lived there since 2001, so I've been there quite a number of years. I think there's some confusion. People are talking about taking Drew down to one way each way. You've got a center lane for turning. Right now, you've got 2 lanes each way, but the left lane, which is the fast lane, is the lane people have to turn in. So traffic is going down the street, somebody has to make a left-hand turn in the left-hand lane, and all of a sudden, all the traffic backs up. These are the people that are in what they think is the fast lane, until the person can make a left-hand turn. So you really don't have 2 lanes of traffic just flowing. You have 1 lane of traffic just flowing on each side, and you've got these people making left-hand turns, which they have to do because it's a neighborhood. So if you had a middle lane where those cars could pull into to make their left-hand turn when the traffic clears, all these other cars could just keep on going like they're going. So to say you're taking the street and you're reducing it to 1 lane each way is a misinterpretation of really what is going on. The additional thing is it will allow the lanes to be a little wider, and we understand what the problem is with that. So I'm sorry for the lady who lives in Skycrest, thinks she's going to inherit my problem, but I think if we can calm the traffic, then she's not going to have any problems, and we'll have fewer problems. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Margaret Page, but really only the nuns called me Margaret, so I go by Peggy Page. And I live on the corner of Orangewood and Drew, and I'm right by the digital sign. And I have to tell you, dangerous doesn't really describe Drew Street. I've been a resident for 50 years down here, and it is more congested than I ever thought it could be. I hate to turn left, and my friends and relatives, I'm outside waiting for them, and they come from the other side because they don't want to turn off Drew. They come from Highland, and they snag through the subdivision because they're so worried about Drew. Since I've lived there, I've lived there just the last 10 years, I can walk to 2 yard memorials for fatalities. I have helped kids get out of a car from a car accident. A car went into 75 feet into my yard. It's dangerous and it's scary, and the sidewalks, my sidewalk edge is 7 feet right into the Drew Street. Now, I can't imagine a mother going in a stroller with a child and a bus goes by, a boat trailer, and that would be scary. And oftentimes, the businesses on Drew Street, I don't want to go down and maybe give a small business, do a carry-out order. I don't want to turn left. So it's time that we do something about Drew so that we don't have any more lives lost. And I do wonder, why isn't there a police presence along Drew? I'm up and down Drew Street all the time. I never see a police car. These speeders are just, it's an expressway out there. So I appreciate you listening, and I hope we take action this time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and City Council members and city staff. My name is Junala Sala. I'm a Plaza Park neighborhood resident. It's great to see so many folks again tonight speaking with regards to Drew Street, and it's actually great to hear both perspectives this time. I do think that the neighbors that have spoken in opposition of this project makes very valid points. Traffic congestion is certainly a concern, but I urge everyone to hear the rest of the folks that have spoken in support of this project, whereby their main reason is safety and protecting lives. I think when you weigh the two, concern around traffic congestion, slowing traffic down versus improving safety and protecting lives, I think the choice is clear. Someone also expressed concern that the traffic congestion might deter visitors from coming. I think that an unsafe road is a bigger deterrent for visitors. I think we want to make sure that the roads are safer so that they feel safe and comfortable traversing Drew Street. One other thing to consider is Drew Street is always going to be a major thoroughfare or a main road for people to take from Tampa, from that side of Clearwater, taking them to downtown Clearwater and the beach. The designs that I've seen are beautiful, and it really does, stay true to the bright and beautiful from Bay to Beach motto right underneath our logo. It is a way to really, showcase the beauty of our city, and it's a way to market. It's a way to direct people to downtown and to the beach, but let's make it safer for everyone. I do think that a vote of no for this project is really a vote to the status quo. And there's no better representation of the status quo on Drew Street than that terrifying video that Mike Riordan showed last time. Accidents and worse, fatalities. So voting yes to this project means voting yes to improve safety and protecting lives. Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi, my name is Lisa Bills, and I live at 222 Orangewood Avenue. I've been there 3 years. I'm a homeschool mom. I run a local homeschool activity group. My family and I are regularly walking around the neighborhood, and we've witnessed many different incidents that cause us great fear. The last time I was here, I spoke about an incident where a speeding vehicle came westbound on Drew Street and made a sharp turn onto Hobart and flipped over after swerving, hit a electric pole, snapped the pole, and a transformer blew. And that's an area where I regularly had been walking. I no longer walk on that area of Hobart and Drew. I also take careful, I'm very careful when I am near Drew on any of the streets. I've heard the idea that maybe we need some more studies, but I think we can all understand that we go from a commercial zone into a residential zone, and the people who are coming through into the residential zone do not have an understanding, do not have a care, and sometimes maybe it's not their fault. They don't realize where they are. They may be from out of town, tourists, but we see the buses taking up more than one lane. We see the charter buses, we see the boats, we see trailers, and it's like somebody else described, you can hardly stay, those vehicles can hardly stay in one lane. So there is the development of Imagine Clearwater, but those events would probably be at night or on the weekends, and we are having a daily problem. This is happening during the weekdays. So again, I'd like to voice my support for the redesign and redevelopment of Drew Street, and I hope you all are in support of it. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Kathy Flaherty. I wasn't going to speak about this, but I feel like I should because I'm very supportive of this project. I walk to Crest Lake Park every morning, and every morning, or not every morning, but so many mornings you see the lights in the distance down at Drew where someone's gotten killed. There was a car that went into someone's house down there. If you have a bike lane, a lot of people are getting electric bikes now and going to the beach. I mean, we fix about 10 tires a day in my bike shop with electric bikes. I mean, people are getting to work that way. I think that's a better way to get to the beach. You don't have to pay for parking. You can come back. the more safe way we can get down to the beach, I think better. I think it's a great idea. I don't think you're going to have a lot of traffic a lot of times. I mean, you have rush hour, but it'll work out. So I'm supportive, so thank you.
Hi, my name is Kelly, and in 2001, I had a head-on collision on Drew Street. I lost consciousness. I was airlifted to St. Pete Trauma Center. I lost my memory for 6 months. If you told me, hi, my name is John Doe, 2 seconds later, I wouldn't remember what you said. Very traumatic. 22 years later, I still avoid a particular intersection on Drew Street. I urge you, please go forward. I understand I have many, many friends, business owners in downtown, and I sympathize with them. I think a great solution is to maybe remove some of those roundabouts on Cleveland Street. They slow up traffic so much. I remember when they were not there. I've moved to Clearwater in 1985. When they were not there, traffic just went so smoothly. Cleveland Street was a great alternative, and that would speed up traffic so much. But Drew Street really, really scares me. When I see bicyclists on the side, I fear for them. Some of them ride on the sidewalk, and I say, go for it. Ride on the sidewalk. But when I see bicyclists on Drew Street, I'm like, why are you doing that? You know, why ride on the road and take your life in the hands? It's just, Drew Street to this day scares me. I would never ride a bike on that road. And like I said, that one particular intersection, even though they fixed it with a light, it's traumatic for me, just that one intersection. I would never want another accident there. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Any more public comment?
Hello, City Council members. I'm Carolyn Bradham. I'm here representing the downtown merchants. And I'd like to say, first of all, we are all for creating a much safer environment for people to come to Clearwater. We're downtown. We want people downtown, and we want people to arrive safely. I think part of our confusion might be is what we hear the plans are. So when we hear that you want to take 4 lanes down to 2 lanes and no turn lane and put bike paths in, we go, what? This is a dangerous situation for our employees trying to get to downtown. So I sent a letter to the council members, and thank you so much, Councilperson Beckman, for your response, and we do appreciate that, and I would like to have some continued conversations. And I think what I'd like to just implore us to look at as the plans get developed, if you're going to take it to 2 lanes, there has to be a middle turn lane. Exactly. Well, this has not been communicated to all of us that way. Okay? So I think that's the important thing for us, and our concern is the bike lane being put over on Drew, and especially because of all the additional traffic that we're anticipating with the opening of the park and all those events there. And right now, we do have a bike lane that comes down Cleveland, and that bike lane is used often. If you're there on a Saturday or Sunday, you'll see many bikes coming down that lane. It goes right now, I believe, up to Missouri, and I was told that it was supposed to go all the way to the Gateway once they get done with that construction. So there is a way for bikers to also be able to come downtown in a safe manner, and I think it's just a matter of, if we are going to go forward with this, making sure that all of the safety features and all of the existing things that are already in place are taken, a good look at, and that we are all included in that process so that we have the least business disruption ever. I mean, we talk about maybe taking Cleveland Street and putting it back the way it was. That street was closed for a very long time, and many of the businesses that were downtown are no longer there because of that. We've been through COVID. We're still recovering. We have a severe situation with the economy right now, and the merchants that are still downtown hanging on, business disruption, means a lot to us. So I'm just conveying these concerns from all of our merchants downtown and let you know that we are supportive of a safe environment. We do not like accidents, and I do understand everyone living down that corridor in the presidential. It is a nightmare. I've driven that same route. I cater for the Phillies, and I have to drive that road. And sometimes it is true. You've got other cars that are wide and are taking up the area. So I do understand, but those are just the points that I wanted to make sure that you knew, and that we are supportive of anything that creates a safe environment and that can also continue to bring people to downtown. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of council. I'm Sheila Neisler, and I own Catalyst Tampa Bay, and I have an office at 600 Cleveland Street. And Councilman Beckman and Shoyer, I want to thank you so much for noting my mother's passing last week. She's what brought me back to Tampa Bay, and ironically, it's why I'm here tonight. She passed due to peripheral arterial disease, basically clogging of the arteries in her legs. Your proposal in front of you is just that. The arteries of community and economic development are going to be constricted. Clearwater is at a tipping point. Like my mom, downtown Clearwater can't and won't heal. Economic development with small businesses, restaurants, and retail can't thrive if you've got constricted traffic. Look at what happened to Osceola and Fort Harrison. If you're committed to small business growth, please reconsider this decision. Safety is a problem, but it's time for more creative ideas. It's the wrong decision for the right problem. Don't let downtown Clearwater and the Gateway die. Thank you.
Anyone else to speak on this agenda item? Rudy?
Good evening again. I'm Rudy Michaelek, 855 Bayway Boulevard, here in Clearwater. Just a couple of points, I guess, that I would like to make to the council members as regards to things I heard this evening, because I wanted to listen to what people have to say. First of all, with regards to the number of routes in and out of Clearwater, and specifically down to Clearwater Beach. Once you hit the bridge going to the beach, there's only 2 lanes. It makes no difference how many avenues bring you to that point. You only have 2 lanes to get down and 2 lanes to get back. Secondly, with regards to the downtown area, I have found this neat little app that I have on my phone that says if I want to go from point A to point B, here's 1, 2, 3, sometimes even 4 different alternative routes of how to get there, and all with time associated in order to get there. People have talked about safety as an issue, and time offsets should not necessarily be used to say, how do we measure safety and time? Where is that balancing point between those 2 interests that are in front of us? I have observed that when I've tried to come back to the beach, I've done everything from Gulf to Bay to Drew to Cleveland to Missouri, back to East Bay, even all the way down to Alberton, and then found the cross streets that come across, and the same when I want to go to Dunedin. I have found 3 different avenues in which I can go to Dunedin, basically from the downtown area. So there are a variety of other options that are also available. And this one decision doesn't have to be an end-all decision. Once the decision is made, we may find that there are other traffic patterns that can be enhanced or enlarged in order to flow traffic in and out of the area. So we've dealt with employment down on the beach because you only got 2 lanes to get you there. And I guess the other thing I would say is and in fact, Mr. Elbitron made this statement, I think, when he was running for re-election. I'm running for re-election to get things done. I think that those were your words, that you had things unleft from the previous passage and you wanted to see that they got done. Well, we're at that point of just making a decision. Either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. End of story. As they say, when you ask for another study to be done, that's just another excuse for finding a way to kill the project. So if you're going to kill the project, kill the project. If you're going to vote for it, vote for it. But my God, how many studies did we go through just for Imagine Clearwater? I think I heard reference to that too during one of the council meetings. So from my standpoint as an individual, I suggest that you move forward with this package.
Thank you.
End of story.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kevin R.T. Laughlin. I live 1237 Rose Road, where many people in Clearwater doesn't even know where it is. If you take Drew Street from here all the way to Bayshore and turn left 1 mile, and it says "Welcome to Safety Harbor," hang a quick left. As close to it as you can and still be in Clearwater. I had a car broken into, and the police came to take a look at it 9 years ago. And the sergeant, a nice female officer, didn't know my neighborhood was even there. 19 years on the force. I just put my home into Waze. It's 7.2 miles. It is 19 minutes from here. It suggested route was Drew Street. I've taken Drew Street down here all the time. I'm on the Clearwater Marine Advisory Board, and I come down to downtown Clearwater often. It's a common road for me. It is a hazard. Just like we saw in St. Petersburg with their pier and with their police, with their police headquarters, people drag their feet and say we can't do anything because we can't find a perfect solution. Maybe there isn't a perfect solution, but saying I live next street over and people might take my street because they don't want to take Drew any longer. If they took it down to 1 lane, I bet you if I put it in, it might say 22 minutes for me to get home. You have to look at it that people are going to be in a hurry, whether they're on Gulf to Bay. Many friends from up north come and visit me, and I tell them stay off Gulf to Bay, especially beach times, especially rush hour. Take Drew Street. It's actually safer, I think, than Gulf to Bay. You could say, oh, there's a lot of accidents, but if you take the serious accidents, the death, the red light camera at Belcher and Gulf to Bay because a crossing guard was pinned against a pole by somebody running a red light there. Clearwater has problems, and whining about it and saying, don't bring this to my neighborhood is not going to solve it. Clearwater is progressing. We're about to open a brand new park here. In my remarks about the mayor, I actually said we're going to have a safe Drew Street in the future. We're still soon, through the Marine Advisory Board, going to have a brand new Clearwater Beach Marina because Clearwater keeps moving ahead. People that scream about the dollars don't look and say, this is a city with a if I'm correct, $500 million budget roughly. Where are we going to get the money? Well, some of these things are financed, some of the money is there. This needs to move forward. People have to stop dying on Drew and being hurt on Drew, and changing that course at this point. I didn't know this had been 7 years, but changing it at this point is the wrong way to go. We have to keep moving this city forward. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Good evening, council members. My name is Mike Nelson. I live on Clearwater Point, 825 South Gulfview Boulevard. I'm not here to talk about Drew Street. I am here to solicit your support.
That's the agenda item on Drew Street right now?
Oh,
That's
I'm
what-
sorry. So I'm out of
You want to
order.
wait for?
I'll step aside.
Okay, sure. Anyone else for comments on agenda item 4.1, or 4.3 or Drew Street? All good? Okay, close public comment. So I'll turn to my peers. Do you have questions of experts that are here, comments? Councilmember Alvin?
Okay, this plan for Drew Street goes back, as many of you have said, a long time. Seems like everything we talk about in Clearwater goes back a long time. I remember being there when we were doing the charrettes in the very beginning, and they were showing the plans of where the 2 lanes and the middle turn lane would go, and then where when the 4 lanes would start, because 3 different municipalities own Drew Street. You got the city, you got the county, and you got the state. It's a very complicated road. And some things like this take a long time because it's hard to get everybody together on one page. Now, we've been talking about this so long, we've actually got the funding to do this project now. And what I want to know, my question is, if somebody can answer it, I think the biggest problem with Drew Street is the residential area, and it seems to be at South Duncan, where South Duncan meets Drew Street. There's not enough lane width. They're less than what the FDOT recommends, and at that point, that's where you have a lot of accidents because people are driving down what they think is in the middle of the lane, and their wheels, especially with trailers, are over in the other lane. My question is this: are we stopping the 1 lane in each direction with the center turn lane? Does that go from Osceola to Duncan? I've heard it goes to Saturn, and I've heard it goes to Keene. Which is it?
Terracon, City Engineer. The 1 lane in each direction with a 15-foot wide center turn lane that is meant for left turns going eastbound, left turns going westbound. That goes from Myrtle to Keene. So that is what we call segment 2.
Okay.
Segment 1 that
I'm
belongs...
going to make a comment here on segment 2. Duncan is actually, that's the change point from commercial to residential. Because if you go east on Duncan, all of a sudden you have a florist on the corner, you got gas stations, you've got markets, and in that short area to Keene, you've got businesses there. After Keene, it's going to go back to 4 lanes, is that correct? Okay. And so, in that area where we have some residences that back up, that's not really going to affect it. That was my question. I got a comment too. You mind if I make a comment?
Sure.
I've been getting a lot of emails and calls from everybody. One email I wanted to read this. Fellow sent a link to the Iowa DOT. And the reason he did that is because I want to read what they have put down for their road systems up there when they consider changing it from 4 lanes to 2 lanes with a center turn lane. So, myth number 1, drivers will be diverted from the area. That's false. For the majority of 4 to 3 lane conversions, traffic volumes remain about the same through the corridor. In addition, 3 lane roads are generally more efficient than 4 lane roads because vehicles no longer need to stop in the through lanes to make left turns, and that was brought up here tonight. Myth number 2, economic development will be stifled. False. Converting to a 3 lane road can positively impact property values and businesses. When converting a 4 lane road to a 3 lane road, additional features can be added in the unused space, such as parking, bicycle lanes. These features can improve livability and transform the corridor into one one people want to drive on versus drive through. Myth number 3, traffic will back up. False. Studies have consistently shown that for roads with less than 20,000 vehicles per day, 4 to 3 lane conversions will not worsen congestion. In fact, operations and safety improve on a 3-lane road because left turns are shifted into the center lane, allowing traffic to flow more freely in the through lanes. And then the last one is myth number 4, I guess. Response times will increase. And it says they don't. 4 to 3 lane conversions do not increase emergency response time, usually improve because emergency vehicles can utilize the center lane where there are bottlenecks, where they occur on the 4-lane roads. So I think there's a lot of things that people are saying that really aren't going to be true. And to me, just my opinion, and I used to live on Drew Street. I've been here all my life, and I've seen the traffic pick up considerably over the last 20 years. You know what, to make 5 minutes more for your travel down Drew Street, make it a safer thing, I think safety trumps speed every time, and so that's where I'm coming from, and I'd like to discuss this more after we get discussion from every person up here.
Thank you.
I have some questions.
Councilmember Teixeira?
So I've had some citizens call me the whole week, and with a lot of conflicting information and misconceptions. So I want to go on record asking the following questions. The study, the traffic study, when was it done? For how long? Over what period? That's where a lot of confusion occurred. So I want that on record so everybody gets the same information at the same time.
My name's Brian Shoyer. I'm with the Florida Department of Transportation in the Planning Office. I had done the study for Drew Street out there. So the traffic counts that we took were at different times. We took some, well, the whole study was during the COVID time. We happened to start it just as everything was ramping up for that and sort of got shut down. There were questions on the counts that we took during that time, being affected by people staying home more, not traveling as much, but that was something the department had worked out because it isn't just Drew we're looking at the whole state. So we can use past models and historical information, and that's how we sort of used that to forecast what was happening in the future and account for the differences in traffic due to COVID is how we were looking at it. So it fit within the models and everything that we used. It was used on other roadways. There's no issues in anything that we've done out there so far.
So it's all conceptual?
Everything's an idea that we model through our systems or analyze in other ways that we have data on. So it's you know, until it's in the ground, it's conceptual.
Did it take into consideration that 2 referendums have passed where the citizens overwhelmingly supported an amphitheater, a park, a hotel, and hundreds of apartments in the next 2 to 3 years? Was that considered?
That's part of the modeling system that we have. So that data is loaded. We have another office that works with the counties and everybody on their land use changes that are expected to happen. We can put that in the modeling, account for employment, you know, residential and everything else that we have data on, and run that through the model, and that was used. So it accounted for the information we had at the time during those years.
So you knew that information before it occurred. I should have called you. You knew that a referendum was going to go through. You knew that we were going to get hundreds of apartments and a hotel.
We had information at that time that we had.
I wish I knew that.
I didn't say that information was there. It was just what we had at the time.
Okay. And you, the traffic times were between what hours and what hours? That was the other confusion that I received.
I don't have the exact hours, but what we do is get traffic counts at different times through the day. So we'll have 72-hour counts. We do turn movement counts, and we'll look at different, like mornings hours when there's the highest amount of traffic, and midday, and then evening hours. And we sort of use all that information in the models.
So in that traffic count, it did not include a spring break as a normal yearly occurrence?
If we can
Because it was
account
during
for
COVID.
seasonal factors and stuff that is in the model, that could be done.
That's for me for questions. I'll have my comments later.
Councilmember Bunker?
I'm sorry it's taken 7 years to get to this point. This is insane. We've got to move faster than this on everything. When I weigh a devastating head-on collision against maybe being 15 minutes late to work, safety wins. I don't see how you can look at it in any other way, honestly. For merchants, how many lives can be lost? How many injuries are allowed to happen so you can make a few extra bucks? I understand the problems with getting business downtown. Traffic is not the main problem downtown, and everyone knows it. We are going to have the ability to have people living downtown, working downtown. We're going to create a whole different atmosphere downtown. We are. And if Drew Street is a little bit calmer, a little bit slower, that's a good thing. For those neighbors who are saying, well, I don't want people coming onto my street because it's going to be dangerous. Well, you know how people feel on Drew. You know, why aren't you concerned about all the accidents that are happening there, all the lives that are lost? We've got to do something about this, and we've got to stop kicking it down the road. So.
Thank you. So I have a short statement, then I have some questions to follow up with the expert. So it has been a very long road for the city and neighborhoods to get to this point, over 7 years. After many approvals to move forward by the city, the county, and Ford Pinellas, we are now at this point. This started well before I was elected. I know Councilmember Albritton has been a very integral part of the Ford Pinellas Board and an important voice for Clearwater during this process. And I want to thank you for your leadership and involvement with that. I'm excited to be part of this project moving forward. I know that during this very long process, there have been opportunities for city staff, for the council, residents, and businesses to comment and make suggestions. The late 2021 review is a great example of a recent review of the proposal incorporating updated traffic studies. I also appreciate all the feedback we have received, emails, speakers, petitions, as well as the information and communication that went to FDOT. It was also beneficial for me yesterday as I knocked on doors in neighborhoods near Drew Street to get people's feedback. It reinforced the narrative previously received. Safety is a huge issue. People want the ability to travel safely, to work, to parks, and to businesses along the corridor and including downtown. So I do look forward to our discussion here and any additional feedback we get from our experts. But also know that there will be opportunities going forward for further comments and shaping. This isn't a one-and-done discussion. We have between, I think, a minimum of $8 million to $10 million allocated that we asked for a number of years ago to be put on this project list. We're put on the project list. We have money that's not out of the city coffers to improve the safety on these corridors on Drew Street, and I don't want to leave $8 to $10 million on the table, let alone the city's reputation of applying for this money, talking about the problem, asking for safety improvements, and then saying at the 11th hour, maybe not. I don't want your $10 million. We're just going to kind of think about it a little longer. And I think that's harmful for our reputation. I do understand some of the concerns, and I have some follow-up questions for either Mr. Shoyer or Mr. Blanton. So FDOT performed analysis and projections through 2045. Certainly they know that we have spring break here in Clearwater, and certainly the 2021 study knew that we had, you know, a 4,000 covered up to 9,000 seat amphitheater coming in down at the waterfront. So if FDOT did that analysis, and it showed Gulf to Bay could handle the traffic. Can either Whit or Mr. Shoyer speak to this, please?
We'll do it together.
Great.
So the question had come up before of making these changes to Drew Street, what happens at traffic? And that was part of the modeling that we put out there and ran through different scenarios of leaving it as is, like a no-build scenario, the scenario where we do the lane conversions to 3 lanes, and we went through some other things that just didn't work, so they didn't get further analysis. But we looked at that, where the traffic would go. We looked at going to Gulf to Bay. I had in previous years, like 2017 or so, done a study on Gulf to Bay from Fort Harrison out to McMullen Booth. So we had a lot of data there already from that study. The traffic will spread out from Drew. It will go, we looked at the state road, it go to Gulf to Bay, it go to other roads. It does not impact Gulf to Bay specifically in any major way. It will add to some of the traffic that's already out there when it's really bad, but it's not going to make it worse or anything that is currently going on out there. So the overall time to travel the whole corridor, Drew, will add 3 minutes by making those 4 to 3 lane conversions. So we're looking at 3 minutes over the whole length of the corridor.
3 minutes and an average of, what, 170 crashes per year?
Right.
Okay. And this is data-driven. Computer models, data-driven. You are all professionals. This is your profession, your expertise, correct?
That's what we do, yeah.
Okay, so it's not just, I think they're going to go over another street.
I'd like to just add something if I can.
Sure.
The
And you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Whit Blanton with Ford Pinellas, and I've done a lot of this traffic counting work as a consultant. The modeling is based on a validated model that is accurate based on traffic counts that are collected and verified and validated. So that's the first thing. The other thing is our staff works very closely with the City of Clearwater staff and other staff around Pinellas County to make sure the employment and population projections are reasonably accurate as best as we can estimate for the future. So not only did we review it, but the City of Clearwater staff reviewed it and gave us input and feedback on those traffic projections that were for 2045. So that was a basis, and that's a standard process of how traffic analysis is done. The end result is that Gulf to Bay was shown to be functioning at a consistent level of service, as it is with or without the Drew Street conversion. Drew Street actually showed that the traffic volumes using Drew Street would decline a little bit in the future with this conversion, but it would be pretty consistent with those volumes today.
Okay.
And we didn't see any bleed over really into Cleveland or Sunset Point roads.
Okay. Can you tell us or explain how will this lane repurposing help businesses along Drew Street? And do you have any examples where lane repurposing like this has positively affected businesses?
I have a couple of examples that I've lived through. One is Edgewater Drive in Orlando, which is in the College Park neighborhood. It feeds into downtown, but it's not the main route into downtown. It's sort of like Drew. In 2004, the City of Orlando converted that from a 4-lane undivided to a 2-lane divided road with a center turn lane. It has generated tens of millions of dollars in investment in the Edgewater Drive corridor. It's one of the most beautiful neighborhoods in Orlando. I lived on that corridor and I saw that transformation happen. The problem they had was a lot of safety issues. Your city attorney is familiar with this, I'm sure too. A lot of safety issues. The City of Orlando did a before and after study and showed that safety improved, pedestrian activity increased, bicycle activity increased, traffic volume stayed the same on Edgewater Drive. They had a slight drop shortly after the improvement, and within 6 months or a year, they came back to the same levels as before. And those are beautiful neighborhoods that people really care about. Traffic is not cutting through those neighborhoods any worse. The other example I have is Main Street in the city of Gainesville that I had a hand in developing 20 years ago or more. That's a state road still. It was converted from a 4-lane undivided into the center of downtown to a 2-lane with a center turn lane. There were projections and worries that it was going to back up that whole area. Those concerns never materialized. Traffic does not divert in other neighborhoods. And if you go to Gainesville and look at that, it's a part of a vibrant, functioning downtown.
So does research show that if you make these improvements, it will allow people to safely walk to our downtown and waterfront, thus reducing the need for parking and reducing traffic? Because those are certainly walkable distances to our downtown.
I think a lot of trips that are 3 miles or less can be substituted. Not everybody's going to walk that far or ride a bike, but some people will. and this gives some people that option. I want to be clear about the bike lanes. Those bike lanes are really only from the section of Myrtle West, where the Pinellas Trail, which is to be a 75-mile loop around the county, comes right into Clearwater, and it would tie directly into Coachman Park. East of Myrtle, we're really looking at a wide sidewalk and no bike lanes there. There will continue to be bike lanes further east that exist today. I read those bike lanes. They are substandard. They're 4 feet wide. They will be 5 feet wide with this design. It's a little better.
Okay. And what's likely to happen to the $8 to $10 million if we don't send this letter of support?
Well, I can't really say for sure, but most of that money is federal money that the Ford Pinellas Board controls. We basically have flexible funds that we allocate based on priorities that we adopt. Those dollars, my understanding is, will get grabbed up by somebody else if they are not used as allocated in FY24, and they could end up in Jacksonville or Chipley or Orlando somewhere. There's no guarantee they would stay in Pinellas County.
And this Drew Street's been a priority for a while, correct?
The board, Fort Pinellas' board has voted on this project by my count 9 times, 10 times including approving the granting of funds for the city of Clearwater back in 2016 or 17.
Okay. And then I guess one last thing. Can you describe the nature of crashes and seriousness of injuries on Drew Street? I mean, we heard some pretty moving testimonial here, but what can you share with us about the nature of those crashes?
I can't compare with the lived experience, but from a data standpoint, when we did our Safe Streets Pinellas study a couple of years ago in 2020, we looked at crash data from 2015 to 2019, so 5 years worth of data. And we found that there were more than 550 crashes in that period along the corridor. We had 6 or 7 fatalities. I don't remember the exact number of those. We had a lot of serious injuries. The reason it's on the high injury road network is because it is in the top tier of all roads in terms of safety, crashes, and injuries. And these are serious debilitating injuries as well as fatalities. So it's up there with Olmerton Road and US 19 and those other corridors as well, based on the volume, so it's relative. I looked more recently at data back to 2020, so 2020 through 2022 was the most recent data, and we had average of 170 crashes just on the section from Key West to Osceola Avenue. I didn't really bother looking on the east because we weren't looking at that part for lane repurposing. So 170 crashes, 60 of those were with injury, and we had 1 fatality in that period. And I know for a fact there was a fatality a couple of years before that. So it's, and we just see it all the time.
So if we agree to send this letter forward of support, what are the next steps as far as citizen engagement and shaping?
Well, and Brian can certainly answer that, but this does not commit you to every aspect of the design. I know the city has sent some comments. I believe the county's going to send some comments, and the county commission is actually discussing this on Thursday, so it's coming up. There, at 15%, there's a lot of opportunity to adjust the plan. The letter of support is for the lane repurposing, and that's what DOT needs as part of its process that's established statewide. They're doing this in places across the state where it's appropriate. And that lane repurposing letter just really commits you to continuing the dialogue on the design. But if there's an issue with where the median's located or how many medians or the extent of the lane repurposing, then that's a conversation we can have.
Great.
So,
And the money stays on the table?
The money stays on the table.
Yeah, the design's ongoing, like you said. I've committed when I was doing the study to Whit and others and even the project design team here that I'll continue to work with them to you know, address issues that come up and dealing with what we've planned and moving that into design. Like Whit had said, the letter of support is the part of the process for lane repurposing. It just shows that when we send this information to Tallahassee for their review, that they understand, you know, every stakeholder in the area is, you know, considered and looked at it.
Thank you.
But yeah, you're always welcome in the designs.
Ms. Poirrier.
There will be a public hearing. That's also part of the process.
I said that. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, I had said I would do that too as part of the design. Once we get to a point where we have some good enough information, we're going to bring it
And this
up.
would be throughout the summer into fall? What do you think? Early? Late
I'm
spring?
getting confused. Is it 60% in June?
Our intention is to have 60% in June.
Okay.
If we can
You should come forward if you're going to talk about, yeah, please. And you want to introduce yourself. Thank you.
My name is Kevin Lee with Arcadius. I'm a consultant, PM. Our intention to have 60% is somewhere around June and July, and hopefully we have agency buy off on it, and prior to we're going into public meeting, because we want to have that consistent message, kind of introducing that, some of these design components.
Okay. Because we're able to spend the money this summer, right, to start, literally. I mean, if we were ready.
It's the FY24 fiscal year, so
Okay.
I think the money would be let for a consultant sometime probably later in 24.
Okay.
Sorry, right now the letting is scheduled for June next year.
Okay. Great. Ms. Poirrier, anything to add? Questions?
Yes, please. Thank you, Vice Mayor. So our incoming mayor has reached out, as many people have reached out to him after being sworn in as a result to this Drew Street issue. And one of the things that he was asking for council to consider during this is that there was a recommendation for a pilot program that was in one of the the 2018 Drew Street concept plan. And he is suggesting that we look at that, so that gives us a real-time opportunity to see what this does before we make a decision that's not reversible. I shared with you what our city attorney has shared in terms of what the concept is, in terms of medians and whatnot. So that's what he's referring to as a result of this. And so that was an option that was part of the concept plan, understanding that this could complicate things in terms of additional questions on funding and how to move forward if council considers something like that, but just for consideration.
Well, I think that's something that can be brought up during the public discussions as we move forward. Do you want to speak to that at all?
As far as doing I forgot the term.
Yeah, it's
It's that option of setting up some cones and stuff.
Some different.
Yeah, striping and.
Well, we have the fundings for design, which is scheduled to be spent at certain times. If we don't meet those goals, it's just going to push us out. Enabling that sort of option where we cone it or stripe it to see how the traffic operates and everything is just going to push out this whole project in the end.
Yeah.
And possibly, have some effect on the funding. It's not my area that how it gets moved around too much, but it's set to be used at a certain time and just moving forward. And it's either do it or not. So.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yes, Councilmember Albritton.
So if we move to send this letter of support from Clearwater, they're still going to have still going to move forward. They're going to have other public hearings, and we could maybe bring something up at that point as to design modifications of different parts. So I think it's important that we get the letter of support out so this keeps moving forward.
Anybody else? Councilmember Teixeira?
I have a lot to say. So I've been hearing from both sides for years. And I really do not want to question the sincerity or the motives of either side. I'm assuming that we all agree that Drew Street is unsafe and it's ineffective. The only thing we don't agree about is the solution. I understand that whole thought of kicking down the can. I'm very anxious about time. And I've been hearing about that all as well, but I also am aware of mistakes we've made, and I want to avoid that. And my fear is that while we're trying to solve one problem, we're creating others. And a good example was actually mentioned by somebody tonight. When we did narrow Cleveland Street, the consequences were Drew. That's why Drew became so bad. When we narrowed Fort Harrison, another great idea, we created an atmosphere where it just harbored bad behavior from drivers, backed up lighting intersections, needing several cycles to cross, drivers ignoring the don't block intersections, and frustrated drivers going through parking lots and little roads. I don't think we should minimize that. We should learn from what we've done before. I do like the idea of the pilot program because it's not very costly. It's just striping. It's quick. It could be done over 3 months. And then it will give comfort to both sides. It will appease the concern of one and validate the other. So I'm not, if it's going to start in June, why can't we stripe it for 3 months, let's say, and see? Because maybe my concerns will be addressed and actually make the rest of us feel comfortable with going forward, or the other way around, show us that it's not plausible and make the changes now. Because what happened in Cleveland Street, we're still dealing with the ramifications of that, and same thing with Fort Harrison. So I'm just concerned that yet again, we're narrowing another artery that should be feeding the heart of our city. And I don't want to be perceived as not caring. My children went on that street and I made them text me as soon as they got to school. I'm leery of being quick for a solution. And I just want to make it very clear, I met with Mr. Blanton. Where are you? Did he leave? Here. And I enjoyed our conversation and exchanging our ideas. And I was quite concerned that he felt I was dismissing his expertise and his knowledge. And it actually made me uncomfortable to have him feel that way. So the best analogy that came to my mind was when you go see your physician and he's qualified and he's an expert and he's been educated, but you as a patient say, it's just not right for me. It just doesn't feel right. So I'm not questioning anyone's expertise. It's just that my personal experience has shown that this might not be the solution and the consequences might be ones that we're not comfortable with, and I just wanted to get that pilot program to be considered. And I'm ready to make a motion to see if anybody would be interested. Make a motion to see if the council's interested in doing a pilot program.
Are you making a motion?
I just made it. I want it out there.
I would be fine with a pilot program. I kind of agree with you that at least it shows we're moving forward on something.
Hold on a minute for Mr. Margolis, sorry.
Good. With a motion on the floor, the immediate question procedurally will be whether someone seconds the motion.
Before the discussion.
Correct. If there's no second, the motion fails. If there is a second, then the discussion would proceed.
So is your motion to
follow the recommendations of the 2018 proposal, to have a pilot program with striping and cones?
Can someone speak to the actual recommendations of a pilot program on a 2018 study? Mr. Blanton?
So I can just speak from experience. And first of all, I was not at all offended by your question, so just for the record, get that all the time. City of Gainesville did do a pilot project for Main Street, the State Road 331 that I mentioned. They did it for 30 days. They put traffic cones and barrels out in the lanes just to see how traffic would respond. It was 30 days. Based on that and the modeling and traffic analysis that was done, they decided to move forward with the project. They did that, and then I believe it was like 9 years later before they actually did the project. The reason for that is they did not have the money 1 year away. That money was not even in the work program when they did that pilot. I think the pilot program probably should have been done in 2018, because now you're a year away from construction. You do it for 3 months. I think it could potentially set you back. There is precedent for doing pilots and those kinds of things, and that's certainly an option on the table, but I can't speak to how that would affect the funding that's available. And my agency is certainly committed to doing before and after studies. We do that for every one of our Complete Streets projects, whether we end up repurposing a lane or not. We just did one on Sunset Point Road where there's the rectangular rapid flashing beacons. We felt they were not installed right and weren't safe, so we did a before and after study. So we do that all the time. But I don't think Orlando did the test. They just went and did it. There's pros and cons to both of those.
I just don't see how it delays it. If it's starting in June, why would a 60-day pilot delay it? I don't understand.
Well, and Mr. Shoyer said we may forfeit the money. We may pay $8 to $10 million.
By having a pilot program where they recommend it?
I think in doing the pilot program and do it for 3 months, and you would have to, just like doing traffic counts, do it at a specific time also. If you're going to do it in June when it's all schools out, the session and stuff, we usually won't do traffic counts at that, so I don't think we're going to collect enough good data during that period of time. If we move it to when did they go back to school? My kids are so old now.
August.
August, so, yeah, so you're looking at September once things get established, and then, you do that for 3 months, we're heading up to, December, and then we're looking at this thing getting wrapped up in June of next year, so.
So, and they're spending a significant amount of money on design. By that point, they're going to be at 60% design or more. Then, let's say it doesn't work, and you're not happy with it, all that money for design is down the road. It's gone.
So just want to make sure the letting of June of next year doesn't implicate where we have to finish the design. So in essence of we letting the job where actually that goes back to almost 5 months prior to that. We put all the 100% of the plans put together in beginning more like in this December and January. So in essence of what we have time here is right now, give and take 6 to 9 months we have to put together. So that includes getting support, obviously, respectfully, and getting other support from the county as well, and getting that kind of wrapped up, everything within the next 3 to 6 months. So in essence, a pilot program, I'm not too sure where that really fits in, that 3 to 6 months, because of the fact that, as I mentioned before, because contractor has to also bid on this job, and there's going to be most likely 30 to 60 days advertising period. So you subtract that 60 days from the June letting, you go back now 2 months. Prior to that, we have to have everybody concurrence prior to another 60 days. So in essence of where we wrapped up everything in design, even though we're showing it as a letting being in June, in reality, we have to everything have it by December, believe it or not. So that the process takes a little longer.
So where does our input come in if everything seems so already preordained?
The input, it goes each day by day. Nothing really changes. As we design goes with city, county for work announced, everybody will commingle all together. In essence, if we send plans through digitally, we have so-called ERC plans where everybody can comment on it. And also we have a half dozens of meetings moving forward. And then, on top of it all, we're going to have a public meeting, but prior to, once again, to public meeting, to make sure the agency buy up on our design. The thing is for us to move forward to that point, obviously we do need your support respectfully and then going forward.
And I'll just add that our technical coordinating committee of the MPO, Board Pinellas, and the Citizens Advisory Committee recommended advancing this the same 9 times that the board did. Those would have been opportunities for the city staff to say, we need to do a pilot study. Anytime between 2020 and 2022, that could have come up.
Mr. Margolis.
You still have a motion pending.
Motion.
Procedurally
Before
speaking. And
discussion.
So the question will be, Councilmember Teixeira has heard some of the feedback, so the options are either to maintain that motion or to withdraw it. If the motion is maintained, then the question is whether someone is seconding that motion. If the motion is withdrawn, she has the prerogative to withdraw it, but we need to deal with that motion that's pending.
Okay. Do you want to phrase your motion, and we'll see if we can get a second?
Isn't it on record already?
Yes.
It's on record.
I just need a second or not. So it's either it gets seconded or it fails for lack of a second.
Is there a second? Okay, fails for a lack of a second. We have a motion to send the letter that the staff has crafted to FDOT.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to send the letter and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ms. Teixeira? Okay. So the motion passes 3-1. All right, so, I think we should take a recess. No, okay. We'll move on to the regular meeting. Do you want to take a meeting? Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute recess for bathroom break. We can proceed, that's right.
The man has come back.
All right. Oh, okay, all right. So we'll call the meeting back to order, and we are on agenda item 5.1, approval of the minutes. Are there any amendments to the minutes? You have a motion to approve the minutes?
No,
Oh.
no, I just wanted to say that I was amused to see that my whimsical yet scathing takedown of Scientology in the closing comments, which previewed Tracy McManus's latest article in the Tampa Bay Times about deception in downtown, that got boiled down to Councilmember Bunker says he has barely recovered from L. Ron Hubbard's birthday earlier in the week, which made me laugh.
Okay, so no amendments?
No amendments
Okay.
needed.
So a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion, so moved.
Second?
Oh, yeah, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, approval of the minutes. All right, are there any citizens to be heard for items not on the agenda? You come forward and state your name and fill out a comment card. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Angelica Lonesome. I am a 13-year resident of Clearwater. I've been coming down here since I was a child because my grandmother lived here. I am a working mom of a young toddler, and I am a student at St. Petersburg College studying my public policy administration degree. I'm here to present my capstone, which is entitled A Feasibility Study into Installing a New Playground in Southeast Clearwater. Since I've been living here for so long, I've seen the area grow and change, and I've noticed the need that there is, the green space in the area is underserved. There's only one park in the area that has no green space whatsoever. It's over by the Bayside Bridge, and with the water treatment plant being there, it's not necessarily at this moment the best place to put a playground. I have met with various experts and city officials in the Parks and Rec Department and with the City Council, and I have identified not only Bayview Park, but a couple other properties centrally located near the Clearwater Mall that may be suitable. I have, in my study, I have studied the cost of surfacing and equipment, what it would look like for a public-private partnership and how the city could go about that. And I also looked at the demographics of the area. In the area, there's roughly 2,400 households, 260 households with children under 18. That roughly amounts to like 600 children. There are various supporting plans that support this from the city. That include the US 19 redevelopment plan, the comprehensive plan, which is currently under renewal or review right now, and Complete Streets and Green Print 2.0, all of which would support increasing safety, walkability, and the green space in the area. My recommendations for my findings of my study are to look into installing a playground in Southeast Clearwater so that we can serve the needs of the current and future residents of the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else for items not on the agenda? Go ahead.
Okay, I keep coming up here and talking about dumpsters, and Stevenson's Creek, so I thought tonight I'd do a Stevenson's Creek presentation, so here we go. It's quick. So I took my kayak, and there's the pictures. It goes all the way up Stevenson's Creek. So this is beginning by Glen Oaks Park. It comes out, the water does. This is Stevenson's Creek. These are the creatures that live up there. It goes under the bridge. This is Glen Oaks Park. You got trash coming in right up there. More trash. And the creek comes down through Glen Oaks Park, and there's trash all through there. And it's all silted up. and there's some birds, and then this is Glen Oaks Park. It's silted up. There's two drainage things on the outside. And there's the bridge that goes under the water that goes into the East Gate area. These are the holding ponds that sit over there. They're silted up, you can see. This is coming out. Now I complain about dumpsters. There's dumpsters all along this ditch, basically. But this is Stevenson's Creek. So it goes under these bridges. There's the dump, it just drains. You see trash throughout this whole ditch. But the water's clear, okay? Remember, the water is clear. I mean, you've got weeds, you're supposed to clear water. This goes through your downtown. This is what, okay, now you're in the golf course. So the water's clear. It's coming out of the golf course. As soon as it comes out of the golf course, it's this green muck. It's just gross. It spills down into this holding thing. There's this big dark drain under that. This is by Palmetto Street. It comes under Palmetto Street, and then it just sits there stagnant. Dead fish and just nasty. And then it comes down, this is Stevenson's Creek, and all of a sudden you're right at Betty Lane, and that's a public park. You go under the bridge, this is all down, this is Stevenson's Creek. The water's green and nasty. The mangroves are full of, you can't even get to it, it's so gross. And then it's silted up under the bridges. This is under the bridges. You're coming out, that's the water treatment plant, that whole thing spills out. There's a pipe that's something coming out. The water is just green. And then it comes out to the bay. There's the, that's it. It's not a big creek. So there's some garbage I picked up. If manatees go up there to spawn, you got birds, I don't see any birds up there. You're supposed to only put rain, there's a management watershed plan that came out on February 23rd that's got all sorts of great things that you can do for the creek. So don't forget the creek.
Thank you,
all right?
Kathy.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Citizens to be heard? Oh, one more? All right, Mr. Rudy.
I guess I'm going for the trifecta tonight. Rudy Michaelak, 855 Bayway Boulevard, Clearwater Point. Actually, I'm speaking on behalf of a neighbor who was sitting next to me during most of the meeting, but evidently had to leave. His name is Mike Nelson. Mike lives in the Admiral House, which is immediately at the corner of Gulf and Gulfview, the Sankey Bridge and Gulfview that goes into Clearwater Point. And what he wanted to bring to your attention is the amount of noise, music, and volume filtering down Gulfview and down the water side where all the bands are on the back of the different hotels. And the feeling from the people who live in his building, the Admiral House, have great concern about the amount of noise going on. So I simply bring that to your attention for investigation, and I'm just doing my civic duty. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rudy. Okay. So administrative public hearings. Ms. Call.
Yes, so items 7.1 and 7.2 are both continued, so if anybody's here to speak to the zoning atlas amendment for 1849 Gulf to Bay Boulevard and the land use map amendment for 1849 Gulf to Bay Boulevard, can do so. But otherwise, it's continued to the next meeting.
Okay. So we'll move on to second readings for ordinances on second readings. 8.1, Mr. Margolis.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So 8.1 is ordinance number 9643-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, making amendments to the Community Development Code by amending Article 2, zoning districts, Chart 2-100, and the medium-density residential, commercial, institutional, and open space recreation districts by amending Article 3, development standards, fences and walls, general applicability standards, home-based businesses, landscaping, tree protection, parking and lodging, signs, temporary uses, dog-friendly restaurants, and community gardens and urban farms divisions, by amending Article 4, development review and other procedures, general procedures and Level 3 approvals decisions, by amending Article 8, definitions and rules of construction, by amending Appendix B, US 19 Zoning District and Development Standards, General Provisions, Regulating Plans, Sub-District Standards, Street Frontage Standards, Site Design Standards, Building Design Standards, Flexibility, and Administration Divisions, by amending Appendix C, Downtown District and Development Standards, General Provisions, Regulating Plan, Character District Standards, Frontage Standards, Site Design Standards, Building Design Standards, Flexibility and Administration Divisions, certifying consistency with the city's comprehensive plan and proper advertisement, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Anyone from the public to speak on 8.1?
Good evening. Susan Crockett, Ruth Eckert Hall, and I just wanted to thank the council so much for your listening to us and helping us to get the code changed so that we can put a beautiful new marquee down on Cleveland Street at the Billheimer Capitol Theater, and I think the timing could not be better with this beautiful new park that's opening. So we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 8.1.
Second.
Sorry, thought it was going this way.
Motion and a second? All right. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Unanimous?
Aye, by the way.
Okay. Item 8.2, Mr. Margolis.
Thank you. Ordinance number 9649-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, conditionally vacating a portion of a 70-foot wide right-of-way lying west of lots 72 through 76, Lloyd White Skinner subdivision, as recorded in Plat Book 13, pages 12 and 13 of the Public Records of Pinellas County, Florida, subject to certain conditions, providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public to speak on agenda item 8.2? Do I have a motion?
Now it's going this way. Okay. Move to approve item 8.2.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, unanimous.
I wanted to correct it.
Agenda item 8.3, Mr. Margolis.
Number 8.3 is ordinance number 9653-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, annexing certain real property located on the west side of West Manor Avenue, east of the intersection of Calumet Street and North Belcher Road, whose post office address is 1754 West Manor Avenue, Clearwater, Florida, 33765, into the corporate limits of the city and redefining the boundary lines of the city to include said addition, providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public to speak on agenda item 8.3? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda 8.3.
Second. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, unanimous.
This seat exchange is
It's a
confusing.
little
we
different,
just-
isn't it?
Went the other way.
I know.
All right.
Okay. Mr. Margolis, 8.4?
Ordinance number 9654-29, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the future land use element of the comprehensive plan of the city to designate the land use for certain real property located on the west side of West Manor Avenue, east of the intersection of Calumet Street and North Belcher Road, whose post office address is 1754 West Manor Avenue, Clearwater, Florida, 33765, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as residential low, RL, providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public to speak on agenda item 8.4? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 8.4.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Margolis, 8.5?
8.5 is ordinance number 9655-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the zoning atlas of the city by zoning certain real property located on the west side of West Manor Avenue, east of the intersection of Calumet Street and North Belcher Road, whose post office address is 1754 West Manor Avenue, Clearwater, Florida, 33765, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as low-medium density residential, LMDR, providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public to speak on agenda item 8.5? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve item 8.5.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Agenda item 8.6.
Ordinance number 9656-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, annexing certain real property located on the east side of Owen Drive, approximately 340 feet north of State Road 590, whose post office address is 1719 Owen Drive, Clearwater, Florida, 33759, into the corporate limits of the city and redefining the boundary lines of the city to include said addition, providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public to comment on 8.6? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 8.6.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Margolis, 8.7.
8.7 is ordinance number 9657-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the future land use element of the comprehensive plan of the city to designate the land use for certain real property located on the east side of Owen Drive, approximately 340 feet north of State Road 590, whose post office address is 1719 Owen Drive, Clearwater, Florida, 33759, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as residential low, RL, and water drainage feature overlay, providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public to comment on 8.7? Okay, do I have a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 8.7.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Margolis, number 8.8.
8.8 is ordinance number 9658-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the zoning atlas of the city by zoning certain real property located on the east side of Owen Drive, approximately 340 feet north of State Road 590, whose post office address is 1719 Owen Drive, Clearwater, Florida, 33759, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as low-medium density residential, LMDR, providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public to speak on agenda item 8.8? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve item 8.8.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Agenda item 8.9.
8.9 is ordinance number 9667-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, vacating a portion of a platted drainage and utility easement located on Lot 1, Block F, Northwood Estates, Tract F, according to the map or plat thereof as recorded in Plat Book 77, pages 46 and 47 of the Public Records of Pinellas County, Florida, providing an effective date.
Anyone to speak on agenda item 8.9? Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 8.9.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Agenda item 8.10.
8.10 is ordinance number 9671-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the operating budget for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2023, to reflect increases and decreases in revenues and expenditures for the General Fund, Special Development Fund, Special Program Fund, Solid and Waste Recycling Fund, and Parking Fund, as provided herein, providing an effective date.
Is there anyone to speak on agenda item 8.10?
Rudy Michaelek, 855 Bayway Boulevard, council members, Ms. Poirrier. I guess the only thing I would like to mention is that we're at a point halfway through the year that we're amending the operating budget. Now, I can understand if revenues or expenses exceed the budget item in terms of an actual number that's going on, but I'm surprised that there would be a need to actually amend the budget itself. Now, I'm not familiar with government budgets. I will say that right on the forefront, and maybe it's through my lack of knowledge as to why this is being purported, but I would just express that concern about amending a budget when the actual results just say, are we doing better than budget, or are we doing worse than budget? Thank you.
Mr. Ravens, would you like to speak to that?
Jay Ravens, Finance Director. The quarterly budget amendment process is a normal function of Florida governments. It's an opportunity to address issues that have arisen since the adoption of the initial budget. Often those are items that have been brought forward to council that council has approved that were not included in the original budget. It's an opportunity to make those types of adjustments. More of the actual results versus budget, those are typically amendments later in the year, such as third quarter, when we true up budgets based on actual results, typically when revenues have come in greater than anticipated. But first quarter typically is basically making adjustments for items that council has approved via the agenda process.
Okay, thank you. So, agenda item 8.10. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 810.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 8.11, Mr. Margolis.
8.11 is ordinance number 9672-23, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the capital improvement budget for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2023, to reflect an increase of $3,674,281, providing an effective date.
Anyone from the public to comment on 8.11? Okay.
Rudy Michaelak, council members. I guess I would still have the same question here. My business practices of doing a budget was always based upon that was a goal, that was a target, that's how we were going to operate. Things that caused a change during the course of the year was just a matter of fact things of this is how we've actually operated, and it helps us guide us for the next budget period. So again, we're adding another roughly $4 million, it appears, to capital improvements. And I guess I would echo a concern I've heard in recent meetings about, are we really keeping a close watch on how we're spending the money? Because if we keep changing the budget, we keep moving the target that we're aiming at getting to. And at some point, we may be spending a great deal more money than was anticipated at the beginning of the period. So I just share that as a concern as a tax-paying citizen. Thank you.
Well, I would say, as we move along through the months and we have agenda items where we approve money and different money comes in, this is just an opportunity to rectify the books, to even up the books as we go along quarterly. Mr. Ravens, you want to justify, explain any further? But we've already spent the money and absorbed the money. This is just to make it more official in the books.
Again, Jay Ravens, Finance Director. Another important distinction with a government is that we have legally adopted budgets that we legally cannot exceed. Whereas a business may use a budget more as a management tool, and if they exceed the budget, that's just an observation that they have exceeded the budget. For us, it's a legal issue, so we have to legally amend the budget. We're not allowed to overspend the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you, now I understand.
Okay, great. All right, so agenda item 8.11, a motion to approve?
Move to approve 8.11.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. 8.12, Mr. Margolis.
It looks like it's on the agenda to be continued.
Yes. So items 8.12 through 8.14 are being continued to the next meeting.
We need a motion to continue? Okay.
Item 9.1 is also an item to be continued. It is a purchase contract between the city and Habitat for Humanity, but it'll be continued to the next meeting.
May I approach?
Yes, please.
Hi, good evening. Denise Anderson, Economic Development and Housing. As Rosemary stated, the item is being continued. What circulated was a draft document that has since been amended, but it's come to my attention that some concerns have been raised by one or more members of council regarding a component of that document related to grant funding of solar installations. So if it is your preference, we can talk a little bit about the financial feasibility of solar and why it's being presented in that draft contract as such. And then if you'd like to provide feedback or guidance about how we approach solar generally, that would be welcome information. So I do apologize for the mistake. It was my error in keeping that agenda in the system. I intended to move that forward until we had a finalized document, and I failed to do so, so I apologize. The document, as I mentioned, has been amended and is being circulated. We anticipate bringing it back
unless there are changes that you recommend. We anticipate bringing that back at the next meeting on April 20th. So thank you for your indulgence. I'd like to talk, as I said, about a specific element of the proposed funding, but not about the agreement. Since we are continuing that to the next item, it wouldn't be appropriate to talk about the agreement. But what I specifically wish to walk through just briefly are the financial considerations and feasibility of solar installations for low or moderate income households, and the policy considerations, including Greenprint 2.0 and the $3.3 million application that we fondly refer to as the ARPA allocation for affordable housing. So in terms of the financial considerations and feasibility of solar, there are several factors to consider for low to moderate income households. One is that it should be installed in conjunction with a new roof so as not to potentially void a roof warranty. And since it will presumably last for the lifetime of the roof, it will help avoid any burdens and expense of uninstalling and reinstalling panels should a roof replacement be necessary. Significant and important homeowner education components include maintenance and potential increase in premiums for homeowners insurance. So there's a component there with homeowners that require some education and information. And though it is a significant expense, the investment does not actually yield in the appraisal. So making an investment of $18,000 to $25,000, or whatever that number is in solar panel installations, it does not show up in the appraisal. And that's an important component as we move through this discussion. And per HUD rules, regarding income qualification standards, lenders may not use the reduction of electricity costs as a decrease in the debt to income or back-end ratios. So while a key objective of solar on homes for this target population is a shared desire of the city and of developers and presumably of property owners, doing so provides no opportunity on the front end to impact the underwriting or affordability for the home. So in short, it means there's an impact to current upfront costs, risks of increased insurance premiums, maintenance, possibility of voided roof warranties, and these things must be thoughtfully considered and compared to the potential savings of electricity. So for income-constrained households, we're finding that these are very significant barriers that require a mitigation. So in moving into policy considerations, then we'll wrap this all up with sort of where we are, right? So in terms of policy considerations, we look to Greenprint 2.0, and what we commonly refer to, again, is this $3.3 million ARPA allocations. So Greenprint 2.0 has an established goal of rooftop solar to be installed on homes of 1,000 low and moderate income residents by 2030. And I know I have made this mistake, and I've heard it several times, 1,000 low to moderate income homes. We're talking about residents. And with an average population of 1.86 persons per household, what that really means is about 540 homes is the target. But based on financial considerations I've described, making progress against this goal is very, very difficult. And it can really only be achieved for these populations through contributions or subsidy. And that brings us to this $3.3 million allocation. So on November 3rd, you all approved policies for economic development and housing to administer these funds. And specifically, we talked about several strategies. We talked about construction loans and grants, enhanced down payment assistance opportunities, emergency grants, and enhanced rehab loans to prevent or address deteriorating or code-related conditions. And we talked about grant funding for rooftop solar installations. And so rooftop solar installations can be considered for all types of new construction projects, so long as, including multifamily, so long as the household benefits directly from those savings associated with electricity from the rooftop. So for rehab projects, as an example, grant-funded solar may be available when a new roof is installed and is part of an overall rehab loan. So we can fund the solar as a grant-funded project, but they must be participating in the rehab loan where a new roof is required. So in closing, I need to get feedback on these policies that I've just described, understanding where we are with Greenprint, understanding if you concur with my conclusions about the financial feasibility for target populations, that it requires subsidy if you're not comfortable with the way that we've come forward with ARPA allocations under the policy established on November 3rd for rooftop solar. It would be helpful to know this before I bring the item forward. Happy to take any feedback or questions.
Councilmember Albritton.
So I have a question. Are we looking at ROI on solar?
No, we are not. This is consistent with Greenprint 2.0.
Okay, because, for the life of the roof, well, you may put a 25-year roof on there, but insurance requires that you re-roof it 15 years or they won't insure you, so.
Legislation did change a little bit on that, but to your point, I completely understand. There's now an inspection required in order to not insure.
Okay, so they can extend insurance, they can extend a 15-year roof with a inspection?
Correct. That was legislation, I believe, that passed last year
Okay.
in the special session, but we have an attorney in the House. Made no different, but I believe there is an opportunity to extend.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? I have a couple of questions. So, first of all, I appreciate the work you've done. I'll make a few corrections just from my experience. In speaking with a number of people who have solar, I've had solar on my roof for 5 years. So I've experience with solar, and I'm in a townhome, similar to what, and the square footage that these people are a part of this project. And so, a couple of things. There's really no maintenance on solar on my roof. I have not been educated in it. We don't have to do maintenance on it. We have, there are electrical components when solar's installed that will let you know how your panels are working. You don't have to climb up 3 stories on a roof. So there really isn't maintenance on that. We're not required, again, I'm only speaking for me, but extra insurance, those things are individual. The return on investment is at least 3 to 1, and as Duke increases their rates for electricity, the return on investment will be even greater. We do have Greenprint, which I didn't understand your, it was my understanding that Greenprint says we're going to have solar on 1,000 low to moderate income homes by 2030, but you're saying it's 540 homes?
It's on the homes of 1,000 low to moderate income residents. So based on the average household size.
Okay.
That's how I calculate that figure.
That makes sense. I am absolutely in favor of what we agreed to before in November of using the affordable housing bucket, ARPA funds, for solar on these 540 homes, or as we start to make a dent in that. These are residents, workers in our community who would very likely not ever be able to put solar on their home, afford to put solar on their home, especially those at 80% and under, the 12 units with habitat. The ones that have 120% AMI very well might, but still, it's 120% AMI. So I think it's a good use of our funds. I think it will allow people to use, and whether or not they get to use their electricity savings in qualifying, I mean, that's just money that they'll have to pour back into their community and into their families. So I don't have a problem with that.
Certainly, to your point, it certainly affects a family, a household affordability. My only point is it cannot be used in a calculation when determining affordability. Yes.
And that seems absolutely fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I would urge us, and again, I would hear from anyone else if you have a problem with this money coming out of our affordable housing bucket. But I would say, in looking at this document that was attached that's in draft form, we have to be very, very savvy and very, very informed about the amount of money that we're willing to pay for a 5-kilowatt system and what that means, because I just think that's very, very important. And when we talk to people who are wordsmithing this document, the other thing that was part of it, and this is part of our education, is EV ready in a garage does not mean a 110 or 120 outlet. And so people need to understand, that difference as we go forward. So, if your question today is, and I think if you're asking for guidance, if your question today is, can whatever funding the city wants to put towards solar on these low and moderate income homes comes out of the ARPA affordable housing bucket, then that's the only guidance you're looking for today?
That's correct.
Do you want a motion or just guidance?
Well, Ms. Sanderson, it's her item. I would say that, as she pointed out, the council had previously approved in concept the idea that a portion of the $3.3 million from the affordable housing bucket could be put toward this purpose. But it's one thing to say it at a high level in a concept. It's something else when the council is asked to approve a specific expenditure of almost $500,000 that could be put toward actual construction of affordable housing. And so it's one thing to have a philosophical conversation, but it gets to be pretty real when you actually have to vote on limited dollars and where they go. My advice to the council and to staff is to have some clarity of how important is this to you and how much is it worth to the council, because there are only so many dollars to spend. And that's where it gets tough.
And that's the decision we'll make when you bring forth the actual item, correct? You're just asking, can you begin to work through an agreement like this in pulling funds from that bucket?
Correct. So, I've heard from one, haven't heard from all of you where you're feeling on this, so I can't say that I've received consensus on guidance. But, if we're making no changes to the proposed contract other than what's been amended and you have not seen, then we'll be bringing it forward in April. If you would rather talk about changing your policies associated with the ARPA allocation as it relates to rooftop solar, if that's on the table, then of course that changes things. So I did take a quick peek at what we're seeing so far in activity on the ARPA allocation, and if I may just share some data with you. So currently we have encumbered $183,600. That's 5.5% of the total 3.3. Of that, 15 of these projects were emergency grants at $5,000 each, and 2 what we call enhanced down payment assistance loans utilizing ARPA funds for $108,600. So it appears that we have 11 rehab or emergency repair projects currently in various stages of the application process, and up to 8 of these may be eligible for some portion of ARPA funds. It's hard to tell until we go through the underwriting in different aspects. But none of these appear to be solar related. And as it relates to solar specifically, we have, in, again, very early stages of application, 2 to 6 single-family homes, new home construction projects. I believe 2 of them, it's intended to be solar. There's reason to presume that solar would be appropriate, keeping in mind that not all homes are appropriate depending on the trees and canopies, things that are around. But right now, it appears that at least 2 of these 6 would be solar appropriate single-family construction projects. So the $432,000 that's in question here for this item that you'll be seeing soon, it represents 13.1% of that total allocation.
Well, and I'll add to a couple things. Number one, we approved Greenprint 2.0 that has measurable goals. How are we going to meet those goals if we don't use some of these funds? The other thing I would say is putting a 5-kilowatt system on a low to moderate income home that's probably, 1,500, 1,600 square feet is adequate. And we should pay about $12,500 for a 5-kilowatt system. That's a reasonable price. And the other thing is there are different federal subsidies and tax breaks that we can look at to even lower it even more. And so we've got Greenprint, we have ARPA funds, we have a lower dollar amount, and we have ARPA funds that have to be encumbered by what, the end of 2024?
Correct.
All right, and so we've got to move on this. And I think it checks off a number of boxes. Whether or not, these numbers that we've seen on this draft that isn't finalized, I think we talk about numbers and hopefully they'll improve when we see it later in April. But I think if the question today is just, are we open to considering this, I think we should be.
I'm on board with it.
I'm on board. I do want to point out, the pressure that we're getting to provide affordable housing. And so I kind of want to know, how much housing are we turning away for that? I want that answer before I make that decision. Because if green print is great, but I also have a lot of people that say that we need every single home that we can provide. And so I'm going to need to at least understand what that 432,000 means in terms of affordable housing, so that I can justify that decision.
And what I would just add is, I hope it's not 432,000. I'm just saying, the numbers, I'm hoping are better, but we're not here to talk about that tonight. So are we all on board with giving Ms. Sanderson the approval to
I think it.
Proceed as planned?
proceed as planned?
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
thanks.
Let's continue.
Sounds easy.
Item 9.2, approve supplemental work order 2 to Terracon Consultants, Inc. to provide Brownfields assessment grant services in an amount not to exceed $220,000.
Good evening, Council. I'm Joe DeSico with Public Works Engineering. The U.S. EPA's Brownfield programs provides grants and technical assistance to safely clean up and sustainably reuse contaminated properties. The City of Clearwater's Brownfield program has a rich history dating back to 1996. Over the years, we have been awarded 7 EPA grants that have provided for 73 site assessments and 17 cleanups that have resulted in 88 acres returned for reuse. In 2021, the city was awarded a multi-purpose assessment and cleanup grant in the amount of $300,000. At first, activities seemed a little slow. I think that was likely due to what was going on in 2021. Developers were slow to move, but it's ramped up. We have already awarded 2 grants and have 5 applications that we're currently reviewing that we'll be pushing through soon. This contract is the Terracon and will provide community education and outreach, development of a brownfield site inventory, providing general programmatic support and reporting, environmental site assessments and asbestos surveys, and remediation and reuse planning. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Anyone from the public to speak to 9.2? I think somebody come forward. Nope, okay. Okay,
We're all staring at him.
all right. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 9.2.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. Agenda item 9.3.
Item 9.3 is being continued to the next meeting.
Can I ask a question why?
This one is being continued. We were not aware that they were not going to be present today, so
Oh.
Javon is not here tonight, so
Okay.
that's the only reason why it's being continued.
Okay, all right, great. 9.4.
9.4, authorize a purchase order to Hewlett-Packard Enterprise for the equipment lease of desktops, laptops, and tablet computers in an amount not to exceed $700,000.
Mayor, Council, Jared Barden, IT Manager. We're approving this for a short term as the state is behind on their contract bidding and renewals. And so we're doing this for a period of 4 months. And we believe this will get us to the point where they will have their new contract in place or an extension. We normally bring this forward for a 3-year term, and over the 3 years, the approximate cost for our leasing is $2.5 million. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Bart? Anyone from the public to speak to agenda item 9.4? Okay.
Move to approve agenda item 9.4.
Oops, hold on. Real quick, Rudy?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Every time we get a number.
All right.
Thank you very much for that, because my question was, how can you just do this for 5 months, which is March through July? And you just explained that, so now the whole thing is clear in terms of where we're going for the long term, so thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Glad we could be collaborative. All right, so we have a motion and a second? Second?
Second.
All right. All those in approve? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Agenda item 9.5.
Approve a 3-year maintenance schedule and contract to Tyler Technologies in a not-to-exceed amount of $1,564,250 for maintenance and support fees for Munis Financial's Human Capital Management Software Program.
Mayor, Council, good evening. Yes, this is item is to approve a 3-year contract with Tyler Munis for continued support and maintenance of our financial and human capital management systems. The item also includes a one-time charge of approximately $25,000 in professional services to support migrating our Munis environment from our on-premises data center to the cloud. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All good? Okay. Anyone from the public to speak on 9.5? All right, do I have a motion?
Move to approve item 9.5.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. 9.6.
Appoint an individual to the Brownfields Advisory Board with a term to expire April 4, 2027. Council members, Ms. Ladrilla Jackson has resigned. She has been serving on the committee and is not able to continue serving, so she has completed her term. Because Ms. Jackson was serving in the resident category, an individual that must reside in the area, we were able to find one applicant, Katrina George, for your consideration.
Anyone want to comment on Ms. George?
Nope.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Yes, motion to appoint Katrina George to the Brownfields Advisory Board.
Second.
After much consideration, aye.
2, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Good. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Ms. George. Katrina. All right, agenda item 9.7.
Appoint an individual to the Community Development Board for an unexpired term through March 2nd, 2027. Council members, unfortunately, Ms. Dauphiné had to resign due to work schedule changes. For your consideration, we do have applicants, only 2, but we do have Mr. Hupp, who is a real estate developer, and Mr. Hutkin, who is currently serving as an alternate member, is also up for your consideration.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
Comment.
Okay.
I spoke to Mr. Hutkin, and he would prefer to stay in the, what do you call it? Alternate position, correct.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone?
Yeah, I'd like to, last time we went through this, I would like Andrew Hupp appointed, and so we went a different way, but I think I would be comfortable having him fill that position.
Okay. Does anyone from the public care to comment on agenda item 9.7? Okay. So do you have a motion?
Motion to appoint Andrew Hupp to the Community Development Board.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Welcome, Mr. Hupp. Agenda item 9.8.
Elect a council member to serve as vice mayor. Council, as required by city charter, at the first meeting in April, the election of the vice mayor must occur amongst the council members. What I have outlined in the agenda is basically prescribed by the current council schedule. So last year, Councilmember Bunker declined to serve as a vice mayor, so there are a few options that council may take. Either A, go back to last year, B, follow the schedule, which would be Councilmember Beckman to serve as vice mayor again, or go to the next person in the schedule, which would be Councilmember Albritton. Councilmember Teixeira would follow Councilmember Albritton. So I leave it up to your discussion.
Okay. Councilmember Albritton?
I'd like to ask Mark if he'd like to be vice mayor.
Yeah, last year I stepped aside because I was having some health issues, and the folks at Morton Plant took me in and worked me over and got me in great shape. So I would like to assume the position if that's acceptable to the rest of you.
I think it's a good idea. The last meeting we had, it was very apparent that some people didn't understand the role, that it was rotational and it was an honorary role. So since you deferred last year. I think it's only right that you get it this year.
Thank you.
Anyone from the public to speak on agenda item 9.8? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve Mark as vice mayor.
Can you second it?
You can.
Well, I will second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
Good for you. Okay. Agenda item 9.9, Ms. Poirrier.
Good evening. So for our recycling update this evening, I wanted to let everybody know that our consultant, Kessler, is on board. So we have reached an agreement, the agreement is signed, and he has begun the work. His first line of business is to help us with the RFP. RFP is out on the street for single stream recycling, and that closes on April 14th at 10 a.m. So that's what he will be working on first. Secondly, he is going to assist us with our routing issues. And with routing, it's not just a matter of determining where, the most efficient way to pick up the routes, but it's also another tool that we can use for accountability to making sure in terms of our rates and what is being collected and whatnot. So we're excited to have him on board. It's great news to have him with us. And I wanted to let you know that our numbers for March, we delivered 719 tons of recycling to Waste Connections. And of that, 94% of it was accepted and processed. So our rejection rate due to contamination was only 6% for the month of March. So that's a drastic improvement. Very proud of that.
Yes, awesome.
And the last update that I have as it relates to recycling is that we are working with public communications to have these numbers updated monthly and put it on our website as a way to let the public know how much we are recycling, which is a majority of what it is that we collect at this time. And then we hope that with this RFP that we'll actually be doing that at a reduced rate here in the very near future.
Okay. All right. City Attorney reports?
Actually, there's one more item. It's a review of the city's financial condition.
Really? No? Not on a vote?
There's no action being taken.
No action?
It's just an update.
It's just an update. There's no action.
So there is a 9.2?
There was an item that was added after.
Okay.
Good evening, Council. Jay Ravens, Finance Director. This item is a brief update on the city's financial condition as requested by Council. I have an attachment to the item you should each have a hard copy of, and we'll display on the screen. Again, this will be a brief update. The worksheet that you've been provided, the first column reflects the unrestricted reserve balance for the general fund, each of the 8 separate enterprise funds, and the central insurance fund. The second column indicates the minimum required reserves for each of these funds per council policy. The third column is simply the first column less the second column, which gives us the unrestricted reserves in excess of the minimum required. As you can see, all of the funds have unrestricted reserves in excess of the minimum, which reflects their strong financial position and the sustainability of the various enterprise funds. The fourth column provides the cash reserves that have been designated for various capital projects. This column helps explain why some of the utility funds have a very large balance of excess reserves in column 3. It's due to the fact that these excess reserves are actually cash in pre-funded capital projects that are planned for future years. These are still available reserves for an emergency, but we do have plans to spend them. The last column provides you with the balance of the excess unrestricted after adjusting for the cash that they've dedicated to capital projects. And you'll note it's actually negative for a couple of the funds, water and sewer and gas. This is due to the pre-funding of large major projects for those utilities that causes them to always have excess significant excess cash reserves due to the pre-funding of the projects. But the overall takeaway from this schedule is that all of our funds and major funds and operations continue to be well-funded and solvent. Additionally, we continue to update long-term forecasts of the general fund and the major utility funds on an annual basis, and typically have rate studies performed at least every couple years for each of the major utility funds by independent third-party rate consultants to ensure that we are proactively planning for and addressing the capital and operating needs of the city. In summary, cash reserve levels are very strong. Debt levels are relatively low. The pension is one of the best funded in the state. And the city is probably in as strong of a financial condition as it ever has been. Having said that, we currently have a large list of needs and asks, both capital and operating, as staff shared with you at the strategic planning work session. That is not unusual for this stage of the budget process. And as we do every year, we will be vetting all of these requests in detail with the departments involved in order to prioritize both capital and operating needs and wants to arrive at a proposed plan that is achievable and affordable. Happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Albritton.
Well, mostly a comment. I want to thank you for bringing this up because there's been a lot of, I think, misinformation in the past few weeks about our condition of our city, so it's good to see that we're financially strong, and I think it was good to put that on the screen so everybody can see it. Thank you.
Councilmember Teixeira.
I also want to thank you. The only thing that is disheartening to me is that there's no media around here right now. They're all gone because it's just not sexy enough to be here. But these are the hard facts, and I really appreciate the way you clearly communicated them. And maybe I should just get this clip on video and put it on my social media, and Nextdoor and Facebook and Instagram. But I really thank you. The way you portrayed it is very clear, and I'm very happy and confident in your ability.
I also thank you for bringing forward the information to us. I think it's important that we get this out there because there seems to be a campaign against us right now, which I think is regrettable. And I'm not sure that that campaign is going to slow down. But I think the best thing that we can do is do a good job for the citizens of Clearwater, spend our money wisely, and move the city forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ravens. I appreciate this. It's always good to work with facts and stats and actual dollar amounts, and we'll make decisions wisely and look at the numbers going forward. Really appreciate it. Thank you. All righty. So, agenda item 10.1.
Well, it certainly is encouraging to see people still in the audience here for 10.1. The PSTA agreement involving beach service for Jolley Trolley, I know has been at the forefront of thousands of our citizens' minds. So please assure our constituents that we have it under control. So this will secure our arrangement with PSTA and Jolley Trolley, not only for this year, but also for the next year. We have simplified the formulas. Both PSTA was supportive of that, as well as our staff. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
I have a comment.
Sure. Councilmember Albritton.
Thank you for simplifying this. It was all, the last ones we've had were very complicated on both ends. So I think this simplified one everybody's happy with. So thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
Anything else? Okay. All right. We're all in favor? You don't need to.
I actually will need a motion. Interestingly enough, it's funny. The clerk and I have talked about this a little bit, just on the heading of items. Mm-hmm. Arguably, the heading should be like city attorney items or something like that.
Instead of reports?
Instead of reports. Mm-hmm. But in most cases, it is just a report. It's just that every once in a while, I have items that actually need voting approval. So
And so this one does.
this particular one
Okay.
does. I don't know if there's a way in Granicus or Legistar to even change
It's
that.
just an addition of the topic to the actual council rules.
Is it?
It's the agenda, yeah, so that's why, so.
Okay.
But it does say, the item does say a motion is needed, that's why it says approved, because that's what his recommendation is, so.
Okay. Then do I have anyone from the public to speak to agenda item 10.1? You're good.
So good evening, distinguished council members and commissioners, and thank you to City Attorney Margolis. My name is James Bradford, Chief Operating Officer with PSTA, and I was just here to answer any questions. But if you don't need me, then
We're happy
back
with
there.
the Jolley Trolley.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you, and we're pleased with the partnership, and anything that I can do to be of service, please let me know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Margolis.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Well, since I'm the PSTA representative on the council, can I make the motion?
Absolutely.
I move to approve agenda item 10.1.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We've already done 10.2, so we'll move on to agenda item 10.3.
10.3, Council, it is my good pleasure to announce the finalization of our employment contract with Ms. Poirrier. So we have successfully concluded negotiations, and I could not be happier to present this item to Council for your consideration and approval. It's been a pleasure working with her, and can't wait to see what the future holds.
We're happy with it, too. Okay.
Yeah.
So. Sorry. Yeah, my cold medication is 12 hours has worn off. So if we're voting on this, do we have public comment? All right. Anyone from the public care to comment on agenda item 10.3? Okay.
My name is Kathy Flaherty, and I am here and I really wanted to support you as being a city manager, but I can't. Basically, it's because of the way you handled the recycling issue. I've got a video. This is from 2018. There was a conversation at a city council work session because you guys got reported for not recycling. And this is the conversation, so it's important that you guys watch this. So it basically, hold on.
Put it down, put it in the black barrel. One more thing to clarify, Ms. Silverwood, would you give us an update on the recycling perks?
Sure. Actually, Pearl is prepared to do that as well. But I just tag on to that comment about one point as well, is that not only do we don't have the room to store contaminated recyclables. So if we truck them all the way over to Hillsborough County and the load is rejected, we've actually incurred that expense twice. And I just wanted to remind council too that it is considered a form of recycling to burn our garbage through the waste-to-energy plant that Pinellas County has. And in fact, Pinellas County actually is considered to be a recycling solid waste management entity by virtue of having that plant. So we continue to recycle our commingled single stream and Billmore Blue, but we actually pay more to dispose of those commingled recyclables than it is to take them and burn them. So there is a benefit to the user of the system through that form of recycling as much more than there is than currently trucking it to Hillsborough County. But we believe it's still a practice that people feel good about and want to continue to participate in. So we haven't actually come to you with the idea of doing that except for when the plan was closed. But in no way is the city doing something wrong in the way we approach it. They have to make the decision at the point the load is pulled. We either have to take it south or we have to take it to Tampa. We don't have room in the yard, except to the extent that you saw in the story, to try to do a little bit of cleaning or checking the load. But otherwise, you know how cramped that site is. We just can't leave it there and try to decontaminate. We're not set up for processing or separation or to be able to decontaminate that size load. So recycling perks, we're discontinuing.
All right, so basically you guys don't sort your contaminants because you don't have a place to sort. So basically, the drivers pick up the recycles, and they make decision on the spot, either to take it to the dump and burn it, or take it over to Tampa to recycle. This was your old process you did, okay? None of this was brought up at the last meeting. The only thing that was brought up was the staff. You blamed the staff.
All right, thanks, Kathy.
It wasn't the staff's fault.
Thanks.
And that's a bad way to be a city manager.
Okay. Oh.
Rudy Michaelick again, and I would just like to say, the council has appointed somebody to be their city manager. They have provided for negotiation skills, I presume, between Mr. Margolis and Ms. Poirrier, which you are now to approve. Deal is done. Unless you're overpaying her or underpaying her, I don't have a problem, nor should anybody in the city. It's time to just approve things, move on, give it to her, and let her run her shop. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comment? Yes.
Yeah.
Councilmember Bunker and then Councilmember Albrecht.
Well, I mean, the recycling disaster is exactly that. And when you came in to take over all of this was just another mess that no one expected. And I don't think anybody currently on the council was aware of what, the last council was going through then. And apparently we weren't getting straight answers from solid waste. So I just think now you're doing everything you can to set this straight. And I have every confidence that you will. And I'm happy, actually happy that the FBI stepped in and said we're going to look into this, and it's good that we're working with them to get to the bottom of everything and make sure it's handled properly finally. And I have every confidence in you.
Councilmember Albrecht.
I'm not going to get into the recycling thing. That's Kathy and I can have a conversation on that later, but this is about you, and I'm so happy to have you as our new city manager. I think you handled that situation, to me, as interim city manager, you handled that dead on the way it should have been handled. You came out with it, let everybody know what was going on, and was very transparent about the whole thing you're doing and give us updates on it. I couldn't be happier with that. And I just wanted to mention, I see your family back here, and I know they're proud of you too, so thank you all for coming out.
Sweet. Councilmember Teixeira.
It was actually your ability to handle these challenging conflicts through no fault of your own, the way you did it, that made me very comfortable with appointing you. And overlooking what other people might say is experience, you just got plunged into it intensely, and you proved your ability and your poise. So this whole, recycling thing, to me, you shined. You were so transparent, you were so quick and swift and professional. So I'm very happy to have you on.
Well, I'm happy to make it official with a signed contract tonight. I wanted to say thank you to Mr. Margolis for working to formulate that contract. Ms. Poirrier, as I've said in different statements, I'm proud, happy, and I think we're very fortunate that you're leading the city. And I'm confident in your abilities and leadership. I wish you congratulations. Do I have a motion for agenda item 10.3?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
You're hogging it tonight.
Sorry.
That's the second time you skipped me.
All right, so I have a motion and a second.
Have her.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Congratulations. Motion carries unanimously. Fantastic. You can actually move into the office. All right, so item 10.4 is just to provide staff direction on the sponsorship.
Thank you, Council. I know it's after 9 o'clock, but our broker for the city who is handling our naming rights for the amphitheater is looking to the city for some direction. And they, Superlative, have been talking with prospective sponsors, and they have a number that they've been talking with. One of the main questions that they're getting asked by sponsors is whether we intend to keep the name The Sound, which has been published previously, as part of the amphitheater. Some sponsors are perfectly fine with that name. Some may like that name. Others may want to get rid of that name. And so Superlative, because they represent us, is looking to us for guidance as to whether they, meaning Superlative, should tell sponsors that, yes, we will get rid of that name if a sponsor wants us to get rid of that name, or should we tell sponsors that that name stays and that any sponsor who's interested in partnering with us needs to incorporate that name into it? So, not surprisingly, there may be some different perspectives on this from Eckert, of course, Ms. Crockett's here this evening, as well as Superlative, but ultimately Superlative is going to need direction from us as to which direction we would like to go. And with the opening of the amphitheater so shortly on the horizon, we do need to give that direction to them, one way or the other.
Any questions for Mr. Margolis? Councilmember Teixeira.
I want to know if it could be placed on the table to have option A or B. So the company would ask the sponsor option A with the name or without the name. Is that too much to ask?
My understanding from Superlative is that most sponsors are approaching this in a binary way. Either it's a name that they are comfortable with incorporating, or they are not. And so if it's a sponsor who's comfortable incorporating it, wouldn't be a problem at all for them. They may like it. It may be a complimentary name to the sponsor. Conversely, if it's a name that would not be complimentary to the sponsor, or if the sponsor feels that it would detract from their own attention as a sponsor, then the sponsors would not be interested in partnering with us if that name has to be associated with it. So it's really a very individualized decision based on the sponsor.
Councilmember Albritton?
Well, when I first heard the name The Sound, I thought it was a great name. I mean, it incorporates the music venue with where the placement is, which is on our Clearwater Bay. And, you know, that could be, I think The Sound is a very complimentary name for our amphitheater. And I would be real comfortable with just saying, we're going to keep The Sound, and whoever Superlative gets would name over the top of that, kind of like what they did with the Capitol Theaters, the Billheimer Capitol Theater. It would be something similar to, The Sound, and it designates that music venue from the rest of the park, which is Coachman Park. I kind of like keeping it. That's just my opinion.
Well, I have concerns with the financials, and so we hired Superlative with their expertise to give us an inventory of what our marketing assets were, and I think naming the amphitheater is right at the top. And then we gave the okay that they could go out and market it. And to put limitations on it that may impact our ability to generate revenue from selling, contracting with that naming rights, I'm not comfortable with. And so, if I think Superlative should go out and market the name for that amphitheater to maximize our return on money. Because isn't the name of it, doesn't it normally stay for 20 years or something? It's not short term.
It is typically not short-term, but the exact term will have to be approved by the council.
And we have a $1.8 million bond payment we're starting this year for our $30 million bonds on the park. We've got bills to pay related to that park, and I don't want to hamstring the money that will be coming in from naming rights. And so I would propose that Superlative can go out and market our amphitheater name to its maximum amount, and then, if Ruth Eckerd Hall or someone else wants to negotiate and try to have the sound as part of it, that's another conversation. But I think we need to maximize our revenue with the name of that park, of the amphitheater. Councilmember Bunker?
Well, I was a little blindsided, as I think many of us were, finding out about it from the newspaper. So I was a little surprised that, none of us were invited to the naming ceremony or clued in on that at all. Apparently, the former mayor was aware of it, but that never reached us, and too many things like that happened. I'm concerned, now, if this was Puget Sound and it was called the Sound, I'd go, wow, that's a great name. I'm not sure that here it's a great name, especially if we're, going out to sell it to Budweiser. What's the Budweiser sound? Was it a belch? I mean, that's the type of joke or the type of thing you're going to run across with many potential sponsors. And frankly, I am a little concerned, when there's going to be some complaints about volume, that there are going to be people who are going to start calling it the noise. I think it makes it a little too easy to do that. So I'm not sure that I'm sold on the Sound. I would like to see what Superlative can do.
Well, I would say it's not a discussion about the name, the Sound. It's a discussion about the contract and procedure and process and maximizing revenue. I mean, I think the Sound is a great name, but it's about, who has the ability to go out and market the name of that amphitheater or the sponsorship of the amphitheater and maximize our revenue. That's what we contracted with Superlative to do.
And I think what the city attorney said, you got to kind of take that. The Sound is a pretty neutral name. It's not like it. I mean, I don't think it's really going to hamper monetarily somebody objecting to that name as something that'll stick with it forever. As the name is the name changes, you still have the name of the amphitheater still there. But I really don't think, and I'm not an expert, so I don't know. I haven't seen anything from Superlative saying if you name it the Sound name, you're going to get 50% less on it. I think it all depends on who they get, and I think that's a pretty neutral name that's not going to offend anybody that's going to put their name on it. So,
Yeah.
Is Superlative here?
I think it would be wise to have input from Superlative, unless you want to add something, Mr. Margolis.
Well, I mean, I have spoken with them. I mean, certainly their preference is to not be limited in terms of having to tell sponsors that a sponsor must accept a particular name. Certainly Superlative's view on that is that is limiting them. However, Superlative has also been very clear that they work for us, not the other way around. And so if the Sound is a name that we like and that our intention is to keep that name going forward, then Superlative has made it crystal clear that they will absolutely follow our instructions in that regard. To Councilmember Albritton's point, I had the same questions about how to quantify some of this. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to know the answer to that because for many sponsors, as it's been relayed to me, it is really a binary preference. Either it's something that they are comfortable with a name or they're not. And so if you have a particular sponsor who says that they don't care for that name, then that sponsor is off the table. So we may say it's 100% loss from that sponsor. But the other way to look at it is that there may be another sponsor who's just as good, who is perfectly happy with that name and is perfectly willing to accept it. So there may be no loss to us at all. So it is unfortunately very difficult to quantify. All I can say with certainty is that Superlative's preference is not to be restricted in that way. That said, Ruth Eckert has announced the name of the Sound, and I think it got overall pretty positive media attention out of that. So I understand why they would want to continue that name as well. So ultimately, as I said, Superlative will take direction from us one way or the other, but my preference would be for council to coalesce around this one way or the other.
Can you explain how we got in this position, where we're having this discussion right now?
Well, I think there's probably a lot of reasons. This goes back to the previous city manager's preference to start with an outside broker to value and then potentially have brokerage rights for the naming of the amphitheater prior to the council selecting a venue operator. That's not necessarily the order or sequence in which I would have done it, but I think the thought process at the time was that we would get the initial valuation from Superlative, and it was helpful for budgeting and otherwise predicting into the future. So that was the logic at the time, but unfortunately that approach, I think, did create a little bit of tension from the beginning, because that meant that on one hand we have Superlative as a partner that we're looking at as our broker for our physical assets, but on the other hand we have a future and at that time unknown venue operator who's going to come in and want to have management of the entire venue, including the physical assets. So I think a lot of it traces back to some of those earlier decisions that were made to bifurcate the functions between the venue operator on one hand, whether that was Ruth Eckerd, whether that had been OVG, but to bifurcate that function from the brokerage, I think was the genesis of how we have ended up at this decision point. I don't think it's a bad thing either way. I think we're going to do really well. I think the amphitheater is going to be very successful either way. But ultimately, with the opening being so close on the horizon, it's understandable that Superlative at least needs some kind of answer from us as to what we'd like to do.
Councilmember Teixeira.
There's what should have happened, which didn't, and then what did happen. And I can't quantify how much we might get if we take the sound out of it, but I don't want to also ignore the negative impact to all of a sudden switching the name again. We've been having positive feedback and positive media attention at a time where we've had a lot of negative, and I just don't want to add to that. Like I said, there's many missteps or many miscommunications that happened, but we are where we are right now. So that's the question. Are we going to get so much more by removing the name? And what is it going to cost to do this big switch? Oh, we were the sound, but we're not the sound anymore. And so that's the problem I'm having, quantifying each one. I wish I can get some numbers to make a decision so much easier.
I'm sorry that I have nothing to offer in that regard. As I said, it's very difficult to quantify because all we know for sure is that some sponsors will embrace the name and be perfectly happy with it. Others, would not.
Well, to me, it just replaces the word amphitheater. So let's say it's John Doe, it's the John Doe sound versus the John Doe amphitheater. And so that the sound remains with the structure regardless of who's sponsoring it, which minimizes confusion. And it's happened with other stadiums and other musical venues. So it's tough, but I just don't think, I think it's too late to go back.
Councilmember Albritton?
So here's what it boils down with me. When I first heard it, I liked it. And this is our amphitheater. This is Clearwater's amphitheater. And I like that it's named something. It's okay to have a sponsor's name over it, but, it's going to be known as, if we do keep that name, it'll be known, I'll tell you, throughout Florida and probably the region as the sound is a great name for it. And that'll be a name that stays with it. I mean, it belongs to the city. It belongs to our residents. So I look at it that way, that it goes deeper than just maybe we don't lose money with having somebody, or maybe we lose some money, but to me I like the name, and I think it's worth it having something that we built for the city, then it has a name, I think, that will reflect well
Councilmember Bunker, anything to add?
No, I think we're kind of stuck with it.
Your language choice about being stuck with it, I don't agree stuck
I
necessarily.
apologize.
No, I mean, but we have it. I'm disappointed that we've put some restrictions on superlative that they wish they didn't have. I don't think, I wish we wouldn't have to do that with them. I wish they could go out and ensure us, guarantee us that they would get the maximum price, a return for us on those naming rights. And the truth is, we'll never know if we have the stipulation that the sound stays. I think there are some positives with having the sound, being consistent if we have different sponsors every 20 years or 25 years. But I just don't, I'm, uncomfortable with the way it happened, for whatever reasons it happened. So what's the pleasure? Do you want, so how many want to instruct superlative that they must market the name of the amphitheater with the sound attached to it? Is that correct, Mr. Margolis? Is that the direction that they're asking?
It
What we're
is,
asking?
and if I'm hearing the council correctly, and it's not, like I said, we're going to be successful either way, so I don't want the council to feel like this is going to jeopardize the success of the venue or anything like that. But it is something that, they need direction on. So if I'm hearing correctly, it sounds like Councilmember Albritton would be supportive of keeping the name, the sound, and giving that direction to superlative. It sounds like Councilmember Teixeira has the same view. Councilmember Bunker, perhaps, or Vice Mayor, Bunker, perhaps.
I don't want to stand in the way. I think we should go with it.
Yep, I'm on board. I don't think we have public comment if this is just direction.
At this point, it's just direction. It does not appear to be something that is needing a vote. If it had, we would have needed to potentially open that up. But at this point, if that's the direction of council, then we'll let them know. I'm sorry to have to be the one to present a challenging issue, but I think any new venue that you open is probably going to have issues that go along with this. So it's just growing pains as part of the city, and I'm just glad we're getting through it.
Yeah, good. All righty. So, closing comments by council members. How about we start with Mr. Bunker?
How about that?
How about
Okay.
that?
Well, we saw the publishing of Tracy McManus's latest article on downtown, or actually the marina this time, and Scientology's potential involvement with the properties that were snatched up. I have complete faith in the Tampa Bay Times. It is a shame that there would be any type of deception, but it's not surprising when you deal with Scientology because it's kind of baked into the cake. Hubbard has developed that theory of shore stories when he was running the Sea Org on a ship out at sea. They pulled into various ports and would get in trouble because they would pretend to be a business management corporation instead of just saying, hi, we're Scientology and we're just docking here for a while. In Madeira, people were so suspicious of them because of their shore story that they started throwing rocks and bottles at the ship, and there was Hubbard's car was parked on the dock and a motorcycle. They pushed those things into the ocean. And that's what happens when you use deception. I don't think that's the way to become a partner. I've said that if Scientology's got a great deal, I would go for it. And I stick with that, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about a land swap at some point. My advice, which I'm serious about, is if Miscavige wants the CMA property that caused him to buy up everything downtown to use as leverage, we put that in a trust, and we tell Miscavige, okay, go ahead and do what you need to do to develop your properties, and then, after you've done that, we'll give you the CMA property, or we'll sell it to you. I think that's the way to go, and not fall to their chicanery. And that's it for me.
Okay. Councilmember Teixeira.
So I usually use this closing comment section to feature individuals, organizations that have a positive impact on Clearwater. Today I'm going to shake things up. I want to shine the spotlight on Clearwater itself. And so although I was not born in Clearwater, I did choose this city to raise my family. And I did so because of its natural beauty, its warmth, its people, and its potential. I realize emotions have been running high, and it provides the perfect environment for concern. There has been much noise lately, and with it comes misconceptions. But as well said as Mr. Ravens, Clearwater is fiscally healthy. The staff, together with the council, will continue to protect the health of this great city. I also would like to take this opportunity to reaffirm my commitment to this city and to this seat. I remain confident and hopeful, and you all should too. And last but not least, I want to thank all the city staff that came out and did a karaoke evening with me. It was a true pleasure, and I enjoyed watching you all have a good time.
Councilmember Albrecht.
Well, I'm going to keep it short because we've been here for 3.5 hours, but I just wanted to say that I'm really proud to live in Clearwater. We have a great city here, and as you could see tonight, I'm glad that they showed that we're very fiscally responsible. We've got a lot of money in reserves. You know, the press has really we've taken a beating with what's in the press since our last mayor just walked out saying we were fiscally irresponsible. Well, you saw tonight, we're doing a pretty good job up here. And this $90 million city hall, I just want to set the story straight. That was in a strategic plan for 10 years. That the figure came out from staff. We hadn't even had a chance to talk about that yet. I want to make that public because the newspapers don't really seem to want to put it out there the way it really should be put out there. We're going to have discussions right here on the dais about City Hall. By the way, I am for City Hall. I've been on the record for that for the whole time I've been sitting up here. We're going to have a new City Hall. Won't be a $90 million one probably, but we're going to have one, and we're on our way to do it. We're going to have a lot of discussion on it. We're going to all sit down and figure out what size that City Hall needs to be, and we're going to move forward on it. But everybody's going to have a chance to chime in on it. We're going to have public discussions on it, and we're going to move in a responsible way. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'll just keep it short as well. I just wanted to say how proud I was for the number of people that showed up today to talk about things that were important to them, and especially Rudy, who talked about 5 different items. But you know, people really care about the quality of life and safety. Drew Street is a big deal, and I appreciate the stories, the experiences, the data, the stats, the concern, and it all is valid. It needs to be weighed, and I think we gave it serious consideration and thought, and I appreciate that. I would also say that the Sugar Sands Festival is starting this weekend. The Ferris wheel is up at Pier 60. It looks fantastic. The beach is teeming with people and the weather looks great. So please come visit Clearwater. It's a great place to both live and visit, and wish you all a great weekend. Safe travels, safe times. And the meeting is adjourned.